Genoa Township Planning Commission public hearing for March 8th, 2021. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next item on the agenda is the introduction of members. You're to state your name and the location you're in at this current time. Commission members, please. We'll start with Jeff DeHanens.
Jeff DeHanens, at home in Genoa Township.
Jim Mortensen.
Jim Mortensen at home in Genoa Township.
Joe.
At home, well, Jill Rickard in Genoa Township.
Marianne.
Marianne McCurry at home in Genoa Township.
Glennis.
Glennis McBain at home in Genoa Township.
And Eric.
Eric Rauch at home in Genoa Township.
And I'm Chris Grayjack, and I'm also at home in Genoa Township. At this time, I'd like to put out a need for the approval of the agenda this evening. Does anyone have anything? All right, I'd look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Jim Mortensen.
Jim Mortensen, so moved. Second by
Jeff.
Jeff DeHanens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The agenda has been approved. At this time, I'd like to ask for any declaration of a conflict of interest that any of the commission members may have. Cases this evening. Go ahead,
It's Glennis McBain. I talked to Kelly and we don't think there's a conflict, but I do wish to bring forward that I am doing business currently at this time with Kelly Hansen from State Street Lines.
Okay.
And this is Marianne McCreary. I will also acknowledge that I am currently doing business with State Street Lines as well.
Right. We don't see any conflicts of interest in that area. So seeing none, we'll move on. This will be our first call to the public. At this time, this call is made to reflect any items that are not on the agenda currently that we would like to add. Are there any members that would like to add anything to the agenda?
We'll just give a minute here. We'll put this slide up. So again, this is a call to the public for anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission. For
Right, and while that's up, let me give some instruction to what we're expecting this evening. First of all, thank you to all of those that are joining us either by Zoom or phone. For those of you watching who wish to address the commission, there's a link to participate through Zoom, or you can also use your telephone to call in. Information on how to contact us via Zoom link or by phone is on the township website and should be visible on your screen as you see it now. Please note that the YouTube broadcast of this meeting is slightly behind or delayed. If you are participating by phone, please call the number one, and once you're connected, you'll have audio that you'll hear, but you will not be able to speak. You'll be muted at that time and awaiting in a queue to speak. When you hear me open the floor for a call to the public, please raise your hand in Zoom or press the *9 on your phone to alert the moderator that you'd like to speak. We will select individual participants by name or by referencing the last 4 digits of your phone number. When you are selected to speak, please speak slowly, state your name, spell your name, provide your address, and begin your comments. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. We ask that you please try not to repeat comments that have already been made. Please note that any inappropriate language will result in immediate disconnection from our call. So hearing none on our additions to our agenda for the call to the public, I'm going to close that call to the public, and we're going to open our first public hearing of the evening. This is a review of a sketch plan application requesting a second wall sign to provide as provided by table 16.1 footnote 2B. The property in question is located at 7041 Grand River Avenue on the northwest corner of Grand River Avenue and Plus Drive. The request is petitioned by Kelly Hansen of State Street Blinds and Design. Kelly, are you online with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Do you
Go ahead
want me?
and
Oh, go ahead.
and show us what you've got.
Okay, so do you want me to state like my name and address or anything like that to start?
That'd be great.
Okay, Kelly Hansen, 100 Lucy Road, Howell, Michigan. And the address in question for our business is 7041 West Grand River. We moved here just about 2 years ago and purchased a sign at that time, which we loved, but pretty quickly realized that people were having trouble spotting it, especially with the speed they're going right in that area. Our sign is recessed coming from Howell going eastbound about 8 feet from our neighbor's fireside. Coincidentally, they get phone calls from our clients asking where we are. And then the next slide, if someone can go to the next slide, coming from the eastbound, you have to turn onto Plus Drive to get to our strip mall. And once you turn on Plus Drive, we have this architectural wall that blocks the sign. So we were hoping to put a second sign there. We've missed deliveries. We have older clients that aren't great with GPS, and it's a problem about once a day. We had the same company that designed our original sign, design the second one. So it'll be like the same materials. It's a different shape to fit sort of that triangular area. And the two signs together are within the limits had we just made one sign originally, from what I understand. Someone else did this research for me.
Do you have anything else? Do you have anything else for us?
I don't think so. I'll give you just a second to digest that. And I mean, we do have some landscaping issues too, but that is only part of the year. So that's kind of the thrust of our questioning is just, could we have a second sign so that as you're approaching, and the biggest thing is once you turn onto Plus Drive, you cannot see us at all. So people end up going all the way down. And for those who are familiar, it kind of turns the corner and they end up back on Hubert, or I'm sorry, Euler. And so we are fielding a lot of phone calls for that reason.
All right, Kelly, let me see if we've got any questions from our members of the commission. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
I do. Kelly, when people are calling and saying they can't find you, are they calling to say they can't find State Street Blinds?
Yes.
So do you think you're going to get more confusion now because it says furniture showroom?
Well, that is what most people come to us for. So that is a good question. And we talked with our sign company on this. At one point, the very first design only said furniture showroom. He thought having to put more words on it was tricky. We have a secondary option that is similar to the round sign that you see, but instead of having a chair there, it has our State Street Blinds and Design logo. We have a linear version, which is on the front of the showroom. And there's also a square version that is used for like our social media. That was a second option, but we wanted the words furniture showroom to be the bigger part because that's really what people are looking for.
Any other questions?
Yeah, no, I guess that's up to you in terms of consistency and the message you're trying to send to your clients. But I just wonder if that's going to be confusing at all if they're not specifically looking for furniture showroom.
Right. Do you see that it does? It's small, but it does say State Street Blinds and Design in the sign.
Nope, can't see it.
Okay. This is something that we talked to W4 about. It's like kind of inside of the circle. But
It's really hidden. I don't know, can you do your sign? I'm just thinking outside the box. Can you design your sign so it looks like a blind?
well, furniture is actually the main part of our business. We were downtown Howell for 17 years as State Street Interior Design Studio. And when we moved to Grand River, we tweaked it a little bit to say State Street Blinds and Design. I do have a secondary logo, which does, or I'm sorry, W4 designed a secondary sign for us that looks similar to this one. It's a round circle, but instead of having all that interior stuff on it, it has just our logo. So if you guys are open to the sign idea, but not the sign itself, you know, we could show you a revision of that.
I think that, in my opinion, I don't think the planning commission ought to make a judgment about the content of the sign and just whether or not we want a sign that's within the size of the ordinance. And I would trust the owner of the business to know how to advertise her product.
I mean, I do appreciate that feedback, though, you know.
Sure.
I don't have a concern with the sign. I was just having a concern with ease of location and finding you.
Right.
Any other questions from the commission? Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, my question is more towards Kelly Van Marter. I want to make sure I'm understanding the process correctly. This is to allow for 2 wall signs. And is Plus Drive a public road or private? And is that why this is becoming a bit of an issue, because we have a private road with the public Grand River?
Yes, and yes. Typically, a corner lot would be allowed to have 2 signs, but a street is defined as a public right of way. So Plus Drive is private, which means per the ordinance, at least per the sign ordinance, it doesn't qualify for 2 wall signs. So
Gotcha.
the ordinance then gives discretion where in particular circumstances such as obstructed views or building orientation, that would allow the planning commission to grant a second wall sign.
Okay. And so this then doesn't qualify for a variance request then, correct?
It doesn't need one.
Doesn't need
The planning commission does have discretion to allow the second wall sign. They could also seek a variance, and actually initially when she came in the office, that's what she came in for. But I knew that the planning commission had this discretion, and I thought it made some sense to have this group look at it before we went through a variance process.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. That's helpful feedback. From the information I have right now, the 2 signs together, according to the documentation, is under the square footage allowed for this. And although Plus Drive is a private drive, private road, I think the perception from the public is that's very much a public road. It's a commercial road, in fact. And so in light of that, I think that there is a good reason here to support 2 wall signs since it sits on the corner lot here.
Thanks, Eric. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll make a call to the public. At this time, it's a call to the public for open public hearing number 1. Remember, those that are on the phone to dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be unmuted. If you're in Zoom, you can do the same by just raising your hand in the meeting place, and your hand will be recognized and we'll bring you into the meeting itself. Remember to state your name slowly, spell your name, and additionally provide your address. We'll give them a few moments here because of the delay in the broadcast. Kelly, do we see anything?
There was one hand that went up, but it quickly went down. So I do not see any hands up right now.
All right, let's give it another 30 seconds anyhow.
Sure.
Nothing yet, Kelly?
I'm not seeing anyone, Mr. Chairman. I think.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the call to the public then. And any final questions or comments from our commissioners would be taken?
This
I
is
think
Kelly Hansen.
Eric said it best. For me, I'm in agreement.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm in agreement as well.
Hearing none, we'll look for a motion. Can I have a motion regarding the sketch plan application request for the second wall sign?
I'll make the motion that we approve the sketch plan. Is there a date to that sketch plan? We approve sketch plan for the property at 7041 Grand River Avenue by Kelly Hansen. With the understanding, the support is that it exists on two roadways, one being the public right-of-way of Grand River and one being a private road of Pless Drive. And since it is a corner building, that we find the desire or need for two wall signs appropriate in this instance.
Do I have a second?
Can I have a question
Go ahead, Jeff.
for Eric? Would you also include that it does not exceed what is currently the square footage for one sign?
Yeah, that meets all other requirements of the sign ordinance as well.
Perfect. I would second then.
Supported by Jeff. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please state aye.
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 Hi.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, and we passed case number one. Good luck, Kelly.
Thank you. Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Well, I guess maybe two, but I'll be fast. Do I have if we didn't do this, say, for 2 months, would that be a problem? Like, do we need to, instead put this in right away?
Approval is good for 1 year.
Okay. And if I were to keep this exact sign exactly as you see it with materials and size, but maybe we change the wording as we discussed, would that be okay, or do you need to see it again?
The commission is approving a second wall sign not to exceed the amount dedicated.
Okay, understood.
Design is completely up to you.
Okay, understood. All right, thank you so much, everyone.
You're welcome.
Good luck, Kelly.
Thank you, guys.
All right, I'd like to open the second case in our hearing this evening. Review of a special use application, environmental impact assessment, and site plan for a proposed 6,090 square foot church with accessory outdoor uses, including a grotto and Station of the Cross. The property in question is located at 3280 Chilson Road on the west side of Chilson Road, south of Crooked Lake Road. The request is petitioned by Catholic Healthcare International. Are the applicants present?
Yes, we're present. Can you hear us?
We can. Thank you, Scott. Why don't you guys go ahead, and maybe the best place to start is to go through that list of things that we talked about the last time around and see how many of those we've been able to check off.
Sure. Okay. We'll first start out by saying my name is Scott Kuzian with Boss Engineering. We're all here located at 3121 East Grand River Avenue in Holland, Michigan. I'm joined here with Jerry Palazzolo, Father Tim, and Anna Riley of Catholic Healthcare International. And just to intro again, to reiterate, we are here seeking the special land use for this 6,090 square foot chapel with these outdoor complementing uses. So as you mentioned, last meeting, we kind of skipped through any type of introduction about the site and the layout, since not much has changed. So last meeting we discussed, I believe it was 5 different things. One of the easiest of which was additional trees on the southern property line for additional buffering. If we can go to the landscape plan, that would be great.
Scott, is there any way to turn up your volume?
How about now? Is that better?
I believe it is a little bit better. Yes, thank you.
I'll just try to talk a little louder as well. So on the south property line there, at the front of the site, near that bioswale, we have continued the proposed evergreen line of trees. It's a double row that's staggered. It's not within the footprint of the existing tree line. There are a lot of existing trees there, but as the adjacent owner to the south has indicated, those have been dying out from the bottom up. So a little bit more ground cover at the bottom is definitely desired. So we added the full screen on that side. In addition to that, south of where the chapel is, along that southern property line, we've added that full row, again, of double row staggered evergreen trees to provide that buffer. Lastly, for trees, there was still mention about trees along Chilson Road. We still don't have the space to meet the full ordinance just because there's a lot of existing vegetation out there. But if you notice along Chilson Road, we did end up adding an additional 3 trees as a second row there as well. So we're now even closer to in conformance. And again, we're requesting that we can utilize existing vegetation for any discrepancy in that standard. The second item was to add curb and gutter to control stormwater flow. So we've added curb and gutter around the site. We've had to adjust the grading accordingly, obviously to make up that elevation change. We've provided a couple curb drops surrounding the site to better facilitate pedestrian movement. Again, we initially, without the curb, we're promoting pedestrian, more of a free flow pedestrian movement throughout the site for all these outdoor uses like the mural wall, the magnificent tree, and the Station of the Cross. But with these high back curbs, they provide it's a step essentially. So if there's any of those that need a little bit easier access to those, we provided some curb cuts kind of throughout to facilitate that movement. Additionally, for the stormwater, really the location of stormwater hasn't really changed. It's just better directed it, if you will. It's collecting it more efficiently and just directing it to those bioswales. You will note, as will be mentioned probably in the Safe Built letter, that we're still including 2 bumper blocks. We have a little row of ADA spaces right there next to the chapel. And for our ADA route to the chapel, we have done a curb drop for that sidewalk. So the sidewalk is flush with the pavement right there to facilitate that pedestrian access for ADA, which obviously we want to create that buffer space for those couple of spaces. So we're still including 2 bumper blocks on just those spaces. Thirdly, we discussed looking at the driveway at the front of the site there at Chilson Road. There was initial concerns regarding the fire truck turning movement and how wide the turns were and how much of the site drive it needed. So we reevaluated that, and the truck turning template we provided, it is per BAFA standards. We actually had a little bit more room we could work to tighten that radius without actually changing the geometrics of the driveway itself. Again, we're still meeting the BAFA standards that they provide on their fire truck with all the wheel lock turns and all that stuff. So that was a simple adjustment. So another item was additional detail on the use of the bell. And this really closely ties into item 5, which was providing an operations plan that will provide additional insight into the use of the site on things like the chapel use, the bell use, security, lighting, and any events that may be hosted on the site. So to address the first one being the bell, initially we would have desired to have a bell ringing on the hour between, I believe it was 8 and 8 or 9 and 9. We've since backed off of that to have them at noon and 6 daily, and that typically will consist of 3 short rings. In addition to that, there will be manual use during Mass and any special events. We've also, in that operations document, provided a time frame that bells can be used. So that way, Neighbors won't be disturbed between 9 and 9 for a bell. For the use of the chapel, so we've envisioned kind of like this 3 stages, if you will. Immediately, we would intend having just 1 mass per week. And that would progress eventually once interest and visibility and awareness of the site gains, that may go up to about 3 masses per week. So that would be our short-term vision, if you will. And then the long-term, or really the maximum use of this, would be a mass a day. We'd like to point out that as you add another mass time, the amount of participants or amount of people attending will naturally reduce, given the additional availability. To address security, because there is not somebody on site full time, we do have and have provided a local security or emergency contact. That's Ann O'Reilly, and information has been provided in that general document of operations. We would also pursue having cameras on the church for just security of the church itself when people are not on site. And of course, lighting will be used only when needed at dawn and dusk to facilitate pedestrian movement into and out of the site, whether it's in the morning or afternoon. Additionally, we would anticipate using the lights on the chapel, which are pretty low intensity lights to run, again, for additional lighting around the church for security purposes. In the long term, if additional masses are needed and there is a more full-time priest assigned to the site, that emergency contact will naturally transition to that priest. Lighting, which I kind of already touched on, we're going to use it as little as possible for everybody's benefit. We only want to use it around dawn and dusk when the site is open and closing, just in case there's anybody out walking the trails, that they can get back to their car in adequate time. Additionally, I already mentioned the lighting on the building itself for security reasons. If there is an event, which there are very few events anticipated on this, in fact, only 2, which I'll touch on in a minute. In the case of an event, lighting may be obviously used during that event if it is dark. So the events, we listed the events in the general documentation of operations. There's 2 events as of right now with respect to St. Padre Pio, and those events, we do want to control how many people are utilizing that site. In the event that has happened on the site last year, I don't know exactly what website, but an event planning platform was utilized to gauge the interest of the public for the attendees to see what accommodations will be needed. The intent would still to use that or a similar platform to continue to gauge interest. In all reality, we need to cap the amount of cars on site. And if interest is such that it exceeds the site, then a couple options could be presented. We can facilitate a shuttle service if there's a lot of people coming in their own cars as opposed to carpooling. And we can also do a staggered event, meaning it will be maybe a 2-hour time frame, a 2-hour block, and they'll just repeat that block a few times throughout the day to facilitate new crowds coming in, but also maintain a reasonable amount of people on site. And lastly, again, in all reality, if an event is such that it draws such a large crowd, it's going to be known before the event happens, and that event is going to happen at a local parish instead. This site is not big enough, obviously, with the parking we provided, even with grass parking. There's just not enough space to host massive 200-car events. So it is the intent to move forward and facilitate that event planning to control the access and the attendees. And just to get into some of the public concern that was brought up in the last meeting and also leading up to this is, there was a lot of mention about not only the traffic, but also the noise and the lighting levels. And we've kind of touched up on those. For instance, for traffic, our use does not generate enough traffic to warrant a traffic study. It's been stated in multiple letters that if use changes, that additional traffic studies would be needed, or a traffic study would be needed to determine whether or not improvements to Chilson Road would be warranted at that time. For noise and light levels, we've kind of addressed that in our general documents of operations. And then, of course, there was a lot of talk about the assertion of whether, we're here for a rezoning of some type of hospital or medical research facility or use of that sort. So we want to kind of talk a little bit more into that. So we can understand how that inference was made. If you were to go to CHI's website initially, or even documents and newspapers and past articles, there was connection and desire and statements made about having hospitals and medical facilities for a Howell campus. So we can certainly see how coming forward with this chapel, how, where it's located, how that jump was made. I think it's quite easy to do. So we want to make a couple statements to kind of spearhead that. There was no link directly to this 3280 Chilson Road property, but regardless of that, CHI has revised their website to try to curb or avoid any additional confusion added by that. In addition to that, there's still tangible physical site constraints, just the physical area of the property. There's constraints with respect to infrastructure, the lack of water and public sewer in the area. Of course, there's the township zoning issue that would have to be overcome. Obviously, we're full aware of the public concerns of any type of hospital or medical use on this site. Just overall, there would be way too many hurdles for the site, let alone that's not the intent for the site, and it's not the desire of CHI to have any of those medical facilities on this specific 3280 Chilson Road property. So with that being said, just to provide a little bit more definitive clarity, CHI had put together and issued a statement, and I believe they posted on a few media platforms just to get the word out. But Jerry Palazzolo here with CHI will kind of guide you through that, and then I'll close.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, members of the commission. Yeah, this has generated an awful lot of chatter and interest, and the vast majority of which really focuses around issues that we have no plans to pursue on this site. And it was important, as Scott said, you can understand how people went to our website, saw what our plans were, and assumed that everything was going to be on that site. That's physically impossible, even if we wanted to do it, but we don't want to do it. And so we posted a statement, and I think the simplest thing to do is just for me to read the statement. I had iterated it on our first meeting, the meeting last month, and I will reiterate it now. And I would hope that people would please understand us for being truthful in what we're requesting. This is intended to be a campus of prayer, a chapel. No hospital, no medical school, no research lab, no physician practices. All of those things are not the plans for this campus at all. So let me just read this statement. Catholic Healthcare International, CHI, is pleased to clearly state the vision of the Chilson Road Prayer Campus. I need to reiterate, prayer campus, how it fits into the overall mission, and to clear up the understandable confusion surrounding the project. While a hospital, medical school, and clinics are still part of the overall mission of CHI, it is not, in caps, our intention, nor would it be physically possible to build these facilities on the Chilson Road campus. Conscious of and respectful of the local residents, the Chilson Road campus will be only dedicated to prayer and peaceful and pastoral site of pilgrimage. The prayers from this Chilson Road site will support the mission of CHI as it develops in other areas around the country as a beacon of light in healthcare delivery. You need to understand, we really do believe the foundation of prayer is what's going to really build up the work of mercy that we're doing in the charism of Padre Pio. Each phase of the mission will be implemented as partners and collaborators come together. Point 1, the Chilson Road Prayer Campus property was donated to CHI by the Diocese of Lansing. This land was originally intended to be built to build a parish and school. Now, CHI will preserve the natural beauty of this land to provide a peaceful spiritual center. The prayers of the faithful from this tranquil setting will drive the entire CHI vision. Point 2, the Terry Shivo Home for the Brain Injured unit will be housed in a world-class hospital funded by donations to care for the most vulnerable who are suffering from brain injury. The Home for the Brain Injured will not be on the Chilson Road Prayer Campus. Point number 3, the Home for the Relief of Suffering Hospital will replicate St. Pio's Hospital in Italy, the Casa Sieva della Sofferenza. This hospital will not be on the Chilson Road Prayer Campus. Point number 4, the School for the Relief of Suffering Medical School will be a faithfully Catholic medical school. The medical school will not be located on the Chilson Road Prayer Campus. Point number 5, other medical clinics and foundation for public policy are both long-term goals. The clinics and foundation will not be located on the Chilson Road Prayer Campus. We realize that this is a huge mission, and we, as the doctor who helped St. Pio open it, we realize it's with the help of God and the grace of God that we'll be able to accomplish it, and again, based primarily on prayer and the prayer emanating from this prayer campus. So I hope I was able to make that clear, that we are sincere in those tenets that we laid out here. This is a prayer campus. There will be no hospital, medical school, rehab facilities, clinics, no medical services on this campus, a prayer campus. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry. So overall, just kind of wrapping up here, we hope that the changes that we made to the plans based on the items that were listed out in the motion at last month's meeting, we've addressed those. In addition to the additional clarity we've added in our discussion here, and in Jerry's and CHI's statements that's on the screen there, just overall show that CHI is committed to meeting the township and residents' concerns. So just in conclusion, I'd like to again just state that we're here, CHI is here today seeking the special land use for this chapel and these outdoor uses. So with that being said, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from the commission members?
I have one. This is
Go
Jill.
ahead, Jill.
Bumper blocks. I'm just wondering, do you need to use bumper blocks when you're at grade? Could you possibly expand the width of the sidewalk to remove the bumper blocks so that we could keep a nice, neat appearance of the parking lot?
So we do have a 7-foot wide drive, or a 7-foot wide sidewalk right there. So it is a few feet wider to accommodate any overparked cars. But since it's flush, it's just a matter of surface drivability. We just don't want anybody continue to roll their car without any type of physical barrier to stop them. So even though the space is provided, we just wanted a physical barrier. An alternative that we could do would be to provide an additional set of ramps at the location of those 2 ADA spaces. But then what you have is you essentially have 2 back-to-back ramp and landing scenarios. It just, in our opinion, in projects past, doesn't look great, and it's not as practical. It makes it a little bit harder to do. So we can't accomplish it without ADA, those 2 bumper blocks at the ADA spots, but we believe ultimately the 2 sets of ramps and landings would be an inferior product. Although it would provide a more contiguous look in that one spot, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
And I'm
Jim.
having a little bit of trouble hearing you. It's very hollow. In the open issues that we left at the last meeting, and I heard you I've got the document in front of me and I heard you recite through them. I did not hear maintenance plan.
So, yeah, so I didn't refer to it as a maintenance plan. My apologies. I referred to it as, I believe, a general operations document. And that was provided, I think it's a 2-sheet document that was just 8.5 by 11 that was provided alongside the submittal.
Okay, if it's there, I'm fine with it if it's there. Okay.
I have a question, actually. I have the 2-page document, but I had the same question as Mr. Mortensen in regards to a maintenance. So can you go back to, can you refer to what your definition of maintenance plan is as we're looking at this?
Sure. So really, a lot of the comments last month, typically when you hear it, it's operations and maintenance plan. And a lot of the comments were related to lack of clarity of what are the mast times going to be? What are the bell use going to be? So they're more geared towards the use as opposed to the maintenance of those. So with respect to maintenance, it would be like a traditional site. If there's asphalt parking lot maintenance or sidewalk maintenance, any issues arise with cracking or repairs that are needed, trees falling, mowing of any lawn areas potentially, that's all going to be standard. It's at the responsibility of CHI to maintain the site, and it's obviously would behoove them to maintain the site in an acceptable manner as it's open to the public for use. And again, the site is meant to portray and show the beauty of this particular 40 acres. So obviously upkeep on general maintenance like mowing or tree limb clipping if needed, that's all going to be standard at the discretion of CHI as needed. It will be mowed as needed. So we didn't feel the need to get into details of how often it would be mowed. That's and other commercial project doesn't get into that level of detail. So we believe that in the way we received feedback from last month's meeting, they were more geared towards the use. So that's what we really focused on in this document, is to portray the use of the site.
So what you're stating is that CHI is going to be hiring, in essence, a manager
Right.
to
Right.
maintain.
Maybe volunteers as needed that may do some gardening in some of the flower beds around the church, the chapel. There may be some patrons chipping in that way. But yes, in general, it's as long as it gets mowed, if CHI has to hire it out for routine weekly mowing, then that would be what's necessary.
And I'm sorry, looking at the plans, I don't recall, is there an area for any need for refuse pickup?
So because this is just a chapel, there's only a couple bathrooms in there and I think like a little meeting room. It's very small use. So the intent is just street side, similar to residential, just can refuse pickup. So somebody will be designated to pull the cans on an as needed basis to the street, as would be typical for the residential along Chilson Road.
Okay. And then the second question that I had is in respect to finances, to maintain the operation and the property itself. Where is that coming from to maintain the integrity of the buildings, the integrity of the property itself? Again, I'm assuming that's from CHI?
Jerry, is that correct?
Yeah, CHI will, through our donations and through our funds that we raise, will maintain the property and the campus and the development of it. Yes.
Okay. I had a question in your information regarding the chapel bell. On your third bullet point, it says, in the event of a morning mass before 9 a.m., the chapel bell should not be used, and the bell shall not be used manually between 9 PM and 9 AM. So I'm assuming that there's going to be something that dictates it to go off automatically at
So,
other times?
right. So the first bullet point item for your chapel bell is that it's intended to ring daily at noon and 6. And those are going to be automated at only those hours.
Okay.
But the bell will have the ability to be rang manually. And in that instance, in respect to any neighboring properties, if there is a mass time that is prior to 9 AM, it won't be rung. Other than that, though, if there happens to be a mass at maybe 10 AM or 11 AM, because it's between 9 AM and 9 PM, that it will be subject to manual use.
Okay. And just as a clerical point in reference to, it says, in the event of a morning mass before 9 AM, the chapel bell should not be used. Should is I'm just referencing the sentence here.
We can reword that to shall.
Should is not, yes, should is not a definite word.
Correct. Yep, shall. And we can change that if you would like, not a problem.
Those are my only questions at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Is there anyone else on? Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank the petitioner for the operations plan. I find it concise and overall easy to read. So thank you for that. And thank you for bringing that to us this evening for consideration. Under the immediate future part of the chapel operations, says 1 day per week. Kind of out of curiosity, what day do you anticipate that being? And then under short term, when you think about 3 days per week, what days do you anticipate those being?
Can you speak to that?
Sunday for the 1 day. Sunday potentially for the 1 day, but I think we'd like to have the options open. I think the frequency per week probably is of more concern, I would think. But yeah, most likely it would be a Sunday. The 3 days per week, again, a couple of weekdays and a Sunday would typically be the way that it would go. Always during those non-peak hours types of things and that. So, yeah.
And non-peak hours in your context would be like not working, correct?
Generating.
Yeah. And then my other questions in regards to, thank you for the information on the chapel bell. Do you anticipate any other outdoor amplified sounds of any type, any outdoor speakers or anything at your events that would have outdoor amplification at all?
Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there is an outdoor event being held, there may be a microphone for the speaker at that time. But again, we'd have to meet township ordinance requirements on sound. But
right, yeah, it would just be that. It would be, for instance, if we have a program and we had people around, and again, we're going to be limited in the number of people, so we won't need a lot of amplification, but potentially a speaker so that people can hear that, but nothing that we would be amplifying loud noises or music or anything like that particularly, other than background music or whatever. But no, nothing other than that.
Nothing fixated to the building at all that's
Oh,
outside?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely not.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the other commissioners? Go ahead, Jeff.
I also wanted to thank the petitioner for being very specific about updates to the website, addressing those concerns. But I did want to make sure that the noise ordinance is still maintained, whether it's a bell or whatever. Just noise ordinance still compliant. We won't exceed the decibels for noise.
sure, and we would be happy to work with the township to ensure that as well. Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions from commission members?
One last question, sorry.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
The events that you have in this document, are you currently advertising those or promoting those?
We have no promotions going out for those, but those would be the two typical ones. They are kind of the major events for Padre Pio. His birthday on May 25th and his feast day on September 23rd. And both of those events would typically be a mass, a small mass, and then like we did in September, we will always have people reserve for those and limit the number of people so that we can meet what we promised you on the cars and what the property is capable of doing. But those are the only two major events that we foresee on a regular basis.
So I guess so what I'm hearing you say is, no, you're not currently advertising, telling your members that you're doing those things on that date. It's just earmarked for the opportunity.
Correct. But we are planning, we would like to do the event on the 25th, but we haven't put any notices or announcements out on that.
Okay, thank you.
I have one
I have
question.
one. Are you done? You have a question, Jill?
Yeah, the rain gardens, again, I'm a little leery on how well those will work. My experience with infiltration in beds of that nature are significant maintenance issues. So I'm just wondering, are you doing soil borings to verify infiltration rates in your design of them? Do you have an overflow situation of piping? If they fail to work, you have a pipe to release that water. Have you looked into that, or are you still in the preliminary stages of that?
Sure, yeah, I can speak to that. So the bioswale that's near the front, or the rain garden that's near Chilson Road, that's a natural draining area as it is. It's a low spot on this site, and as soon as you start heading southerly onto the adjacent southern property, the elevation starts to increase. So that low spot is currently on our site. There's currently a fairly large area that drains to it. That's all, of course, natural right now. And obviously at this point in time, all we're doing is adding the drive and that parking. The break point for this drainage area is kind of where you see the road split in that little triangular area before it goes into the circle. So we're not adding a ton of impervious for that area. So because we're not, and because it's a low area as it is, and it's currently free draining, there's no indication of any wetland plants in that area, meaning it does drain well. Our indication from the web soil survey indicates free draining soils. And I believe I have included on that sheet indications of what that means for that particular soil type. For the southwest swale, it's the same thing, same type of soil, it's free draining. Water generally flows in that direction as well, once you get to the circle area of the drive. So we're not changing the drainage path in that area. We're just simply creating that embankment to hold it to promote that infiltration. And again, it's not that much additional impervious. It's that circle drive, which is 20 feet wide, I believe maybe 20 parking spaces, and then the church building. So the overall increase in stormwater that's not being infiltrated because of these impervious surfaces, we don't foresee an issue with these two bioswales. With that being said, we are obviously pursuing, this is going to operate on a well and septic, and we have a septic area in the area of the chapel, and we are currently going to be starting, pending the outcome of this meeting, talks with the health department on performing the test pits for the soils of that septic area. And due to the fact that they're in close proximity to this rain garden, we would intend it to be the same. And we do have somebody who's well-versed in soils here, and be very easy to put a plug in that area to verify that it's consistent with the septic area. And again, something on that level of detail, we'd be more than happy to work with Tetra Tech in additional detail on those if needed.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go to our consultants. Brian, you're up first.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just as a reminder, procedurally, this is before the commission for a special land use review, a site plan review, and the environmental impact assessment review. All three of those, should you take action on them tonight, would be in the forms of recommendation to the township board. Township board has the final approval authority over each of those elements. So just a reminder. In terms of The revisions to the submittal, I thank the petitioner for everything they've already presented. They've covered a lot of my points, and then the commission for your questions. You've covered a lot of my points as well. So I'm going to try to pick and choose here, as I think you all have you all should have a copy of my review letter from March 3rd, some of which are holdovers from last month, some of which were new items. So I'm going to try to just cover the new and/or items that were just discussed that I feel like maybe we just need to finalize a little bit more. So the first one is related to, I asked for additional detail regarding the outdoor mass. So the revised, the operations plan, as well as I think the impact assessment, made reference to those. And really what I was getting at was the use of PA systems, microphones, speakers, et cetera. So if the commission is comfortable with the answer you got, then I'm okay with that. But that's what I really was looking for, because we are talking about compatibility with the surrounding area. And we have had instances with other institutional uses in their use of PA systems in nearby surrounding residential or rural residential areas. So I wanted to bring that up. The bell is another one where, again, we talked a lot about that last month, and the petitioner gave you the new proposal. They've greatly reduced the number of times that they will be using it. I did keep in the letter, though, that we still haven't gotten any actual decibel readings on the noise that's expected to be generated. So if that's something that the commission wanted, you could certainly still ask for that. If you all are comfortable moving forward with simply having township noise regulations apply, I'm okay with that too. But it would certainly be well within your rights to ask for additional detail if you felt it was needed. Moving along, I believe at last month's meeting, I think on the screenshot, I think we saw a color rendering or a material and color sample board. I kept this in the letter only as it relates to wanting to make sure that the township ultimately got a hold of that. I want to make sure that the project file is complete. Should this development be approved, then those are items that would normally become part of the township's record. So they have those to refer to moving forward. So obviously it's hard to show a material sample on Zoom. I get that. I probably said that same thing last month, but I want to make sure that ultimately, if this does go through, that the township gets its hands on that material. The parking lot. So we did talk a little bit. There are 2 bumper blocks remaining, and Jill brought that up to the petitioner. So I think we've kind of addressed that. There is one additional item related to the parking lot, and that is they did add 1 space to the lot, and that actually put them just over the 120% threshold in terms of excess parking. So technically, albeit nitpickily, is that a word? They do need commission approval for the number of spaces. So they went up from, I believe it was 38 to 39. That 39th space put them fractions over the 20% above minimum. So that also requires your authorization. The special events. So this is one too that I think we did get some better responses and a little bit more definitive answer to what exactly they may entail, when they may occur. I appreciate the fact that they understand that they need to kind of control and manage their events. And I thank the petitioner for their concerns to that. I will bring this up only again, I know we talked about it, but there are a couple of references in the operations plan to use of overflow parking in the green spaces. And I do think, I guess I don't want to speak for the commission, but that's a little bit of a concern on my part, which is really what led me to including in my newest letter a reference to the banked parking option. I don't know exactly how many people you're expected to have. If you can control the attendance of the events and keep it such that you mentioned, I think, use of shuttle service or staggered start times or windows that were open. I do think that would be important, because I don't think it's appropriate to utilize grass or lawn areas as overflow parking. If you really do need more parking, I'd rather see you address it either by expanding the lot or by designing it such that you bank some parking, and in the event it's determined that it's needed, then you would install it. So that's why I just mentioned that one again, because of the specific comments in the revised materials to overflow parking. So again, banked parking would be an option. Revised landscape plan, petitioner already presented that as well. They have added a number of plantings. In terms of minimum requirements, they're well over ordinance standards. They did incorporate some additional greenbelt trees. As we talked about last time, they are still short. However, in terms of new plantings for the greenbelt, however, there are far more existing mature trees that are being preserved than they are asking for consideration of. In this case, it's 5, and then the ability to not install the parking lot landscaped islands that we would typically see because of the design and layout. And both of those are within the commission's discretion. And again, I will reiterate that in terms of total plantings, the revised landscape plan is well above minimum requirements. Mr. Chair, I think that's all I really wanted to cover, but obviously I'm happy to take any questions that you may have, or if the petitioner needs anything else from me, I'm happy to help out.
Thanks, Brian. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
And the applicant just talk about the 38 versus 39 parking spaces?
We believe it was rounding. If the math works out to be 38 and a fraction, we probably just wouldn't round it up to the 39. If that is an issue, we can go back to just 38. That's not an issue.
Okay.
So if that is a hang up, then we'd be happy to remove that one spot.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, just to clarify, yeah, it wasn't necessarily anything I was bringing up that I'm concerned about, I guess, Jeff, if that helps. I'm not personally concerned about that one extra space, but it does require commission authorization per your parking regs.
Yeah, and for me, it's just a matter of trying to be consistent with what our ordinance says it should be. And if this is truly to be preserved, a very nature-like setting, you don't want to be parking all over the ground. So
Yeah,
parking is in particular in order.
And
Thanks.
just to jump in to speak to that, obviously 99% of the time, those 38 or 39, depending on where that ends, those spaces will be adequate for what is being used for the normal daily flow that people want to visit the site or a mass. We can do banked parking, but ultimately that's going to be adding impervious, going to be disrupting even more. And ultimately it's going to be providing more permanent spaces for any time of day. So we believe that keeping it limited to these under 40 spaces and only using that grass area for parking on just those, right now, just those 2 events that would be anticipated is a really good happy medium between providing just additional parking right now, which just opens up the door to even larger daily uses. So that would be our comment to that. And again, we did mention that we can operate some type of shuttle service if needed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Jill.
Another question on the bank parking. Isn't bank parking just showing where you would locate additional parking at this point on the plan? That seems like something that could be done if you find that you need additional parking. You could submit that to just to show your area that you would place I don't see that you need to build it now, but just to show where you would propose to put it. And that's something that I think our planner and consultants can review.
All right, any other questions? We're going to turn it over to Gary at TerraTech. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you. Yeah, we did another review of this. I got our letter dated March 2nd here. Technically, they've met, addressed the comments we had at our last meeting dealing with the curb and with the stormwater control, and also the grading and such that they have on the site. We still have, a few things that they have to deal with. Most of them are just dealing with the county agencies, the county health department, and the county for the water well and for the septic system. The petitioner said that they're in the process of dealing with that now. So those will need to be submitted to the township for the township's file. And then also the road commission, just reiterating, I believe the petitioner did mention it also, that if there's any changes in this site from what is proposed, then we need to look at having further improvements, possibly on Chilson Road or turn lanes or whatever it may be, whatever the traffic impact study would dictate for that. So I don't have a problem with the bumper blocks on those two spots. They have 4 handicap spaces there, so it's a difficult one to dip down, dip up, dip down to those ramps. So a couple of bumper blocks there to control the car from rolling all the way across the sidewalk is appropriate for there. There's not a lot of ways that we can handle that otherwise. So I think they've done it as best they can there. Other than that, this is, technically they've done what we've asked for. So just once they get the other permits from the county agencies on that side, I think the engineering is pretty well taken care of.
I see Mary Swanson with her hand up. Mary, you're muted.
I just would like to bring up the fact that the color and materials were delivered in February to the township in person by Dare, and the limestone and the brick and the shingles, Kelly showed them wonderfully last time, and she's bringing them up right now. So I just wanted to make sure it went away as an issue.
All right, thank you, Mary. Are there any other questions from commission members regarding Brian or Gary's information? Seeing none, I'd like to review the fire department comments. Do you have those, Kelly? All right, would you like to speak to those, Kelly? Go ahead.
Yeah, so the fire department letter dated February 18th, 2021 indicates that all previous comments have been addressed, including rearrangement of the entrance drive for emergency vehicle access. Additional comments will be given during the building plan review process.
Okay, so we're in pretty good shape there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next up, Kelly, you mentioned that there's some public comment letters that were received. Could you provide acknowledgement for those?
Commissioner, sorry to interrupt. I think we have
Yes.
the road commission review.
I don't.
So we
have it
did
on-
also get a review letter from the Livingston County Road Commission. This was received back in January. This
Okay.
is standard language for them that they need to select a contractor and submit a certificate of insurance. And also just they indicate that any future additions or changes to the site may require a review of the approach and or improvements to the Chilson Road entrance.
Great, thank you. And I did want to look at that item 2 where it says they may require improvements. It doesn't say will, it says they may.
That's correct.
Just a notation.
Right, and that's depending on what use, whether it hits the thresholds and stuff. That's what we'll be looking at it if or when something else comes into this.
Right. Thank you.
So then in regard to
Alright.
letters received, within the packet, I included all of the letters that we had received from the public prior to finalizing the packet on Thursday. Subsequent to that, over the weekend, I received an additional 30 emails that was sent to the commission all today in an email and summarized in a spreadsheet. So I don't feel the need to go over those because everyone has had the benefit of reviewing those. Since that email went out, though, I did receive 2 additional letters this afternoon, one being from Reverend Michael Gilbert with New Hope Counseling. expressing his support. He's in Brighton, Michigan. The second email that I received this afternoon was from Marianne Brown with St. Agnes Catholic Church in Fowlerville. She was also encouraging the commission's support of the project.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Welcome.
Are there any questions or comments for Kelly on those? Seeing none, we'll move on a little bit. At this point, I would like to make a call to the public. And I'd like to make a note before we do that, as we are lining up and queuing, because I know there will be a number of individuals that would like to speak. Please remember this hearing this evening is to consider a special use permit, environmental impact assessment, and a site plan recommendation for the construction of a church, a grotto, and a path system that includes the signs of the cross. There are no other improvements that are being considered this evening, so please direct your comments to the proposed special uses and we'll stay on point. Kelly, do we have anybody with a hand up yet?
We do.
Let's start with number one.
Okay, number one is a caller named Kim. Kim, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We
Go ahead.
can.
Hi. Okay, great. Thank you. And I apologize if I mispronounce the name and the statement, but so there is a website, josephhowell.com, where Yuri Palazzo comments to a plan for phase 2, the Terry Shriver Home for the Brain Injured. The residents near the proposed prayer campus are confused by the messaging heard here versus the messaging seemingly from the CHI director, chairman, and president, founder and president of the Marion Medical Services, as noted on the website. So my question is, has CHI or anyone in representation for CHI approached anyone to purchase additional land on Chilson Road? And if yes, if you do purchase any additional land on Chilson Road, will it be named anything other than the Chilson Road Prayer Campus? Will you specifically state in writing that there will be no hospital or medical center built on any land off of Chilson Road owned by CHI or in support of CHI?
Scott, would you like to handle that question?
Yeah, I mean, we've already provided a written statement that I read saying that we're not doing the Terry Shriver home or the hospital or the medical school or any medical facilities. We have never approached anyone and offered to purchase any land. And I know I saw that in the social media also, along with a myriad of other things that were said that were untrue. So yeah, definitively, I don't know what else we could do. We've written it, we put it on our, and anything that we would have to go would have to be submitted. It's totally out of the realm of what we're doing here and would have to get the approval, and it never could get the approval. So yes, we're not planning on doing that.
Would you state that you would not build or intend to build a hospital or medical center on any land owned? And I believe that you may have stated that, but you do call it the Chilson Road Prayer Campus, and I believe that that's what's called out. So if you do obtain any other land, I would assume that there would be a possibility of, in fact, building a medical facility.
Well, your assumption is wrong. I don't see where it's pertinent to what we're doing, but yes, I will state we will not build any medical facilities on Chilson Road property. We have no intention to buy more property at this point. I don't know how much more clearly I can make that statement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your statement is you have not approached anyone in the area to buy any land. And if we do refute that, we have proof to that point. Is there a way that we could, I guess, submit that to you?
Okay, I think I know what you're referring to. We had a conversation with a neighbor who, and as it was with all the neighbors that we met with, because we went around and met with all the neighbors. And during that conversation, as we explained what our vision was and what our plans were for this, they asked us, would you ever consider, if we were to sell our property, would you ever consider purchasing it? And I said, we have no plans for that. But if you decide to sell it at some point and you want to let us know, please let us know. That's fine. But no, we never have. And so definitively, that never happened. I hope you don't try to take that and make it sound like we were, that was a solicitation for purchase, because it absolutely was not.
Yeah, that wasn't the conversation I was referring to, but okay. So, and then my
Kim,
other statement.
Kim,
on the
I'd like
same-
to stop you for a second. Kim, this is Chris Grayjack. As I instructed prior to the opening to the public, what is on the table tonight is exactly what we described. The 40-acre campus with a church building to be built, a grotto, and the signs of the cross. That's what is on the table tonight. The rest of these things that are being discussed are not part of what this particular question is and what this hearing is about. So we'd like to stay to that point if we can.
Absolutely. Just a question to your point. If the approval is made, does there need to be an additional, I guess, application for any other facility on the campus?
Absolutely.
Okay, so my question would be then, I guess, why does the actual website state something different than what we're hearing tonight? It's confusing.
I think that point is well taken, and I think they've tried to explain that. And I think apologetically, and sometimes because of the way that it has been interpreted. But I think at this point, the way they've suggested and the way they've phrased things this evening is there is no plan or in this case, it's going to be extremely difficult. As Scott said earlier, there's no infrastructure for anything like that at that area because it's scheduled to be 5-acre lots and there is no water or sewer going to be run to that area. Does that help out? Kim?
Yeah, I'm completed. Thank
You
you.
can't have a hospital without the infrastructure, essentially, is what they were saying. And we're not going to provide the infrastructure to that part of the township.
So there will be no water supplied or no sewer.
Right. It's a well and septic area.
Correct.
Okay.
And the majority of the residents do have well and septic as well.
Well, all of them would. There is no.
Correct.
There's no water or sewer. So.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go on to the next one, Kim, because we wanted to limit these to 3 minutes so we can get as many people as possible. Thank you very much for your comments this evening. Kelly, do we have another in line with their hand up?
We do. Next is Deborah Overpaul. Apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. Oops.
Deborah, are you there?
Just 1 second. Deborah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Please
Okay.
state your name and address for the record, though.
Sure. My name is Deborah Oberpoel, Oberpeul. I'm at 5920 Brighton Road in Brighton. So I'm in Genoa Township, just south of where the property is. Thanks for all the information this evening. I appreciate that. I do have some additional questions. So with the events, you say you're only thinking about 2 per year. And what is the kind of max that you're thinking? It seems like those would be pretty big draws.
Yeah, we have committed to a limited number, so we'll do reservations only, and committed to a limited number of automobiles. We thought that for parking would be the way to go with it, so that that would control the traffic flow coming in and going out. So if we get to the point where we can do more major events, which we will do from time to time, it will not be on this property. We'll have to go to a parish in the area or to a banquet hall. So that's kind of our plans. And And even if we want to stagger, like Scott said, which is what we have done, we would make sure that we never at any point exceed that level, so that we have limited amount on the property at any time.
And so this is for the commissioners. What kind of recourse is there, if any, in the event that these events get kind of out of control? I mean, you know, not like a concert out of control, but.
Well, they have 39 or 38 parking spaces, which is what we just were discussing with our planner. So it just at that point, it limits the size unless it's a situation where they shuttle to the site. At that point, there are noise ordinances. There are for PAs and groups of people. So it's all ordinance related, and ordinances, as you understand, are laws. So they can be enforced.
Okay, because I know there was an incident even just during the dedication where people were parked all along Chilson Road. Of course, that's probably because there was no parking lot yet. And so the other piece is a lot has been addressed already. Actually, I think that was the end of my questions.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate questions. And we're going to move to the next. Kelly, do you have another with their hand up?
I do. Next up is Sean Nestor.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can,
Yes,
Sean.
go ahead, Sean.
All right. My name's Sean Nestor. I live at 3360 Chilson Road. I'm the homeowner directly to the south of the proposed church. And I'll be incurring probably the greatest personal impact if this is voted through. Over the last 2 weeks, I had a pretty enjoyable experience going around and talking to neighbors. We've obviously put together a petition essentially requesting you guys to deny the special use permit for a multitude of reasons. But most importantly, I found what seemed to be a common ground with pretty much all of my neighbors in the neighborhood in general. And where we landed was that, you know, this is a great project for Genoa Township. We all support it in the sense that it's a beautiful thing, but it's not being proposed in an area that's zoned properly. And everyone that I had talked to, 99% literally want it to be in a location that's zoned properly. You know, it's not in accordance to our current zoning. It's not in accordance to the future master plan, and it's not congruent with the rural setting that we have on Chilson Road right now. It's nothing personal. It's just the reality of what's being done right now or what's being proposed. We got over 200 signatures in a very short period of time to oppose this. And through conversating with my neighbors, I was extremely surprised to find that some of the larger property owners to the north of me had been approached by the petitioner in an effort to potentially purchase or asking about potentially selling the property in what seems to be some sort of potential, maybe not, land banking strategy for future further expansion. Now, I know Jerry just commented that they did not do that, but I've literally spoken to people that said that they did. And I know that they're in this meeting, and I hope they'll speak up. I know that's not the point right now. I'll move on. But I just wanted to let that be known. I had a conversation, and you know, we weren't talking. I didn't approach him about me selling, but he had mentioned in the conversation also, if I do put my house up, to let him know first. You know, I assume they don't want this extra property for making walking paths, but maybe I'm wrong. I saw their letter of clarification on the Facebook page for Catholic Healthcare International today that they don't want to build any other projects in the Chilson Prayer Campus. But just as Kim said, you can easily buy another piece of property and call it the Chilson Hospital Campus and do what you want. That being said, you know, that letter doesn't necessarily alleviate the local citizens, the neighborhood, the neighbors' concerns about how many more future developments will be permitted in zoned ag areas if this is allowed to move forward. This is not specific to just Catholic Healthcare International. This, you know, where do we draw the line here? Kind of like what I said last month. Sidebar, I didn't get the notice for the last meeting until 15 days after the meeting. It hit my mailbox. So I don't know what could have happened there, but I think it's something that should be brought to the table that property owners adjacent to where these meetings are being held aren't receiving the notifications in a timely manner. I guess in closing, I'd like to say, Genoa Township does welcome this project to the area. It's the citizens that I talk to all just want it to be done in an area that's properly zoned, that it can be placed that will accommodate the area better, the infrastructure, and ultimately their long-term goals better. That's all everyone wants. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Sean. Kelly, do we have another individual?
Next is Michael Williams.
Michael, are you there?
You could please unmute. Address the commission.
Are you there?
We are. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. My name is Michael Williams. Okay, I've been in the area since the fall of '99. Okay, I live off of Westfall Road, right at the corner of Westfall and Pardee. Okay, we are basically in the backyard of the area that they want to build this complex. My first question before I continue is the project that they're trying to build right now. How much area are they talking about building? Is it approximately 5 acres?
What does that work out to, Scott?
Yeah, 1 second. I'm going to our grading plan here. So we are disturbing, so touching the ground in any way, just under 5 acres, 4 acres, 4.5 acres.
Okay, my question is, okay, they were given 40 acres. Okay, so the project they're building right now is approximately just under 5 acres. Okay, what are they going to do with the rest of the property? Do you really think the residents in this area are going to believe that the 35 acres that are left over are going to be left over for walking trails? I don't think so. Okay, the 40 acres they were given, they were donated of this area, they will be building on this in the future. Okay. I moved from South Lyon. My family has lived in South Lyon since 1937. It used to be a very, very quiet country town. And I moved out to Howell because it was a very quiet country town. Now you want to build this complex that I don't know what they want to do. They want to ring bells and in the middle of nowhere. And don't get me wrong, I was born and raised a Catholic. I am a very strict Catholic by my raising, but I do not want to listen to bells ringing hour after hour during the day or during the night. Okay, there is a lot of property that is available north of this area at Latson and I-96 interchange. Why don't they build it there? Okay. I do not want this in this area. Okay.
All right, thank you, Michael. We appreciate your comments this evening. And we're going to move on to the next person. Kelly, do we have another person with their hand up?
We do. Next member of the public is John Walbank.
Hello, can you hear me, Kelly?
Yes, we can. Please give us your
Okay,
name.
Go ahead.
I am John Walbank. That's JOHN-WALLBANK. I live at 2899 Pardee Road, Genoa Township, of course. That's right at the corner of Pardee and Westfall. My property, my 10 acres of property, is less than a quarter of a mile from the proposed site. I've been here 25 years. My family moved out here just because we liked the remote, quiet, rural, agricultural nature of this area. I'm an amateur astronomer. My dark skies are extremely valuable to me, to an integral part of my quality of life. In addition, I keep my property natural. I use no chemicals on my property. I do not landscape beyond the immediate area around my house because basically what I enjoy here is a nature preserve. And that nature preserve extends throughout the neighborhood. Generally in this area, my neighbors were mutually cooperative, respectful of one another. People move out here not to have big parties, not to have rock bands with loudspeakers or anything like that, but to have the rural, remote, relatively isolated character of the area. My quality of life would be mitigated in ways that or be impacted by ways that cannot be mitigated by this project. The proposal does not offer any substantive guarantees that there would not be further activity. For instance, buses coming into this this prayer area, this prayer center. It's obvious that the facility is going to be used for fundraising for other activities of the CHI, wherever those are located. I anticipate considerable transient traffic, people from outside of my neighborhood, outside of my area, coming to this area as a pilgrimage area for for fundraising activities by this facility. The church has seating for 80. That's a busload. In addition, there could be another couple hundred people on the property at a time. I'm not assured at all by the pronouncements of the developer that nothing's going to change. I believe there will be considerable impact on this area that cannot be mitigated. And I see absolutely no reason why this area, which is zoned agriculture, country estate, should be changed. I see no compelling reason to change that. The facility that's proposed can be built on property that is properly zoned, where they can expand their interests if they desire. I urge the Planning Commission to not approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, John. Kelly, do we have any others with their hands up?
Next, we have a caller with the last 4 digits of your phone, 0903. Please unmute. Give us your name and address. Phone number ending in 0903.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Melanie Johnson, MELANIE JOHNSON. I live at 3990 Chilson, and I had some fellows come to my door and ask for my signature, and I said absolutely, like, because this is ridiculous. There's no reason they should build it here except that they were given this property, sell it, and move to appropriately zoned area. We have a church on Chilson Road. We're not opposed to a church on Chilson Road. We are opposed to an international pilgrimage site. Let me give you a few facts that I was able to just gather this weekend as it just occurred to me that that's what they're calling it. Shrine of Christ's Passion, St. John, Indiana, 200,000 visitors a year on a 30-acre site. Hosts 8,000 to 10,000 visitors on a Good Friday. Scott spoke about shuttles and going to other locations. That's a great idea, but that's literally the numbers we're have to look at. The Sorrowful Mother Shrine, Bellevue, Ohio, 120,000 visitors. I appreciate, again, there's going to be shuttling, that's fine. But when the relics of Padre Pio were on display in Saginaw, Michigan, in a 12-hour period, 5,000 people visited. Let's hope that goes to a different parish. I couldn't find numbers for viewings in Gaylord or Roseville. Let's see what else we have. It's to everyone saying this can't support a hospital. You could. It will just take time. St. Joe's in Howell sits on a 10-acre property. So they have 30 acres, well, 30 acres because half of, there's 5 acres of wetlands they can't do anything with. So 30 acres of property they're sitting on. All they have to do is increase their parking lots. I love this one, and actually I would go visit this one. Ave Maria Grotto in Cullum, Alabama, on a 2-acre site, and they have pilgrimages of 10 to 20,000 people weekly. This is not where it's zoned. It doesn't belong here. Put it up the road 1 mile away. I welcome you. It's an amazing draw for a community. Absolutely not opposed to this, but where they want to do it is not appropriate. The dedication of this site last fall, I had a neighbor relay to me the story that there's at least 50 to 80 cars on the site already. They don't only need new parking in the future, they need new parking now. And not even talking about land banking. A question that maybe Jer could answer for me: how many people visit the National Center for Padre Pio in Bartow, Pennsylvania? There's too many unanswered questions at this time. They have not given us the information we need to decide as a community if this is right. This is an international pilgrimage site, and they're not disclosing it as such unless you're looking at their marketing material. So if there's any questions for me, I was one of the petitioners people that went around and gathered signatures. So if you guys have a question for me about what the community's response was, I would love to answer those questions.
We appreciate your input, Melanie. We're going to let some other folks talk too. Good information, and we really appreciate you bringing it to us.
Thank you, Jim.
Kelly,
Next,
do we have any others?
Jim McCardle.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jim.
The speakers before made a lot of good points, so I'm going to try not to repeat them. One thing I find out, first of all, my wife Karen and I staunchly oppose this. One thing I find interesting is that this is a site that's going to be a contemplative site for people with brain injuries, yet there's a freight train line that runs 100 yards to the west of this site. Anybody who has driven on Crooked Lake Road and tried to get through the chaos that is Three Fires when the parents drop off their children knows what a mess this is going to be if, as the speaker previous to me is correct, and we're looking at 80 to 90 cars. This is not zoned for this. And if the good people in Fowlerville and Brighton who wrote in support of this want this so much, let you move it to their communities. This is not something that should be put in this location. This is a Trojan horse. One of the things that the planners put up earlier in the meeting showed, and it was in the summary section, I think paragraph 2, should a future healthcare facility, this, that, and the other thing. You're tipping your hand. Obviously, this is going to happen, and you may very well have claimed to not have asked for people to buy the property, but then you had a speaker earlier tonight who's spoken with the people around his property, and they've all been approached by these people. So I think that this is just a slippery slope. You let this in, you are going to have traffic problems out the backside. This is not going to be good for the community, and it's just the wrong place at the wrong time for a facility such as this. So we oppose this. And again, if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks for your input, Jim. We're going to go on to the next, if you don't mind at this point. Thanks for that information. Kelly, another hand up. Kelly, I think you're muted.
Sorry, R. Jones.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks.
Please state your name and your address.
My
Hello?
apologies. I think I disconnected him. Mr. Jones, can you unmute yourself again? I apologize. I think I disconnected you on accident. There you go.
Yep. Okay. Are we there now?
Yes, my
Yes,
apologies.
please state your name and your address.
Okay. If she promises not to push the button on me again. Robert Jones, 3553 Westfall. I'd like to back up the bus a little bit. I see we're so down in the weeds with the color of the brick and the curbing and that. And I did get to learn a lot. And I realize your planning commission has a lot on their plate as far as these weighing things out. But I did find a publication put out by Michigan Municipal League. It's called the Planning Commissioner's Handbook. And I found some stuff, and I hope not to offend you guys because you probably already know this. But to paraphrase their line on page 3, the decision makers must, within the constraints of the law, allow for development which is consistent with the existing or planned character of the community and reject that which is not. And I think most of us here would like you to reject it based on it's not consistent with the character of the area. In fact, we're dropping a campus into an area of nothing but 5-acre homes, and you're absolutely destroying the quality of life for the neighbors adjacent to there who bought a home knowing that, hey, nobody's going to build here. There's no subdivision going in next door to me. Instead, you're going to get a church with a parking lot and a bell and, you know, all kinds of things going on, shuttle buses, maybe, who knows? And then in the same publication, I read down here, just under the definition of special land use, because apparently the special land use is required and allowed for a church in every single zoning category. So I think you guys are protecting yourselves there, which was a good job, so you don't get the First Amendment issues. But under the special land use, I'll paraphrase, a particular zoning district, if individualized care is taken to assure that the characteristics of the use under consideration are compatible with adjacent land uses, the natural aspects of the site, and the general character of the area. And I don't know if you guys can answer a question that says that this is fitting the general character of the area or that it's compatible with the adjacent land uses. So since we are limited on time and you have more people, I would request respectfully that this board reject this application and in addition, follow through on the process to have them remove the structures that have already been put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, for your comments. Kelly, do we have any others with their hands up?
Next is Robert Moran.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead, Robert.
I think number one, that a lot has been said tonight that has addressed the one issue regarding immediate plans for some of the information that appeared on the other websites. But regardless, I think that the gentleman who spoke just before myself has really hit this nail on the head. This is not a use that is generally compatible with adjacent property. It's not a use, although it's allowable as a special use, there is not an inherent right to it. And the earlier caller that has some statistics in terms of pilgrimage, we are really opening the door for something that's very unknown that would have an impact not only on the quality of life of many residents who are taxpayers and voters in this community with respect to what may happen. Unless there were some guarantees in terms of numbers at any particular time, some clearly enforceable penalties, which I doubt that the developer would even wish to consider, I can't fathom how this really makes sense for the public use of this land. It's one thing to build something, it's another thing to build something that's compatible. And if the commission decides to recommend to the board approval, I think the commission is really taking the easy way out, because this is something that belongs in an area in the township where you as planners have spent a lot of time to say where things that have a higher impact on the use of the land should be located within the township. So by that, I would hope that you would recommend denial to the Board of Trustees of this request. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Robert. Kelly, do we have any others in line?
Next is caller with the last four digits 0801. You could please give your name and address, phone number ending in 0801. We'll give them just a minute. Phone number ending in 0801. I've just asked them to unmute. Give me just one more minute with that caller, and if they don't come through, we'll go to the next. Last call for phone number 0801.
Hello.
We can hear you. Go ahead and give us your name and address.
Your name and your
Lexi
address?
Jones. Sorry, I was trying to figure out my phone. My name is Lexi Jones. I live at 3553 Westfall Road. Our property is actually adjacent to the proposed site. As a lifelong Livingston County resident, as well as part of the future generation of Livingston County, I vehemently oppose the approval of a special use application to allow this church to be built on Chilton Road. I believe that if this request were to be approved, it would set a precedent for other non-residential or non-agricultural entities that will also not align with the township's master plan or with what the residents want. We spent a lot of time talking about the future implications of what the approval of this special land use might bring, but I think we should really redirect it to focusing on the present and why it doesn't support this special land use and why it should be denied. Similarly, there was a gas station in Linden that had applied for a conditional rezoning request. This request was denied. In a quote from the city planner, Adam Young, he stated that the plans are not consistent with the master plan, they're not compatible with surrounding uses, and they don't improve upon the land in a way that is better than what current zoning allows. If we utilize the same thought process and the denial criteria, this special use application is not consistent with the Genoa Township Master Plan. The CHI is asking for an appeal of property that is not compatible with surrounding uses when there is specially zoned property as declared in the master plan as the Interchange Campus, which is located right off of Lassen Road, less than a mile away. We should also consider that the Chilton Road property is protected by the growth boundary of the master plan. Under Section E of the master plan, the sub-area plan is intended to explicitly protect the established rural and suburban residential areas south of I-96 through preservation of natural features, limiting density, and preventing the intrusion of non-residential uses outside of identified boundaries where land use change has been planned. The addition of a 6,000 square foot church, as well as installments of parking lots and curbs, does not preserve natural features, nor does it prevent the intrusion of non-residential uses within this protected boundary. So based on the previously presented information, it's in the best interest of the township to maintain and protect the integrity of their master plan and by extension, its constituents. I also wanted to ask a question from Mr. Palazzolo. Has construction already begun? I just want to clarify if construction has already begun because DTE has already installed a power line on the property. So I'm just wondering why this is happening before a special land use has been granted. So thank you for your time.
Scott, would your group like to handle that question?
Sure. Yeah, so regarding DTE, There was an existing power pole, I don't know, maybe about 150, 200 feet off of Chilson Road, maybe. There's a main line that runs through there, and there's a power pole in the middle of the site. Our design is working around that existing power pole. If there's additional power poles being placed, we have not contacted or worked with DTE to do that. Typically, that's done towards the very end of the project. We would need to submit loading for electrical for the building. And this is a small use electrical load. So we wouldn't even intend that a new pole would be needed. Depending on what's out there existing today, we would intend and hope that we would just tie into that existing power pole and run it off to the chapel. So if there's any work that's being done right now, it's DTE's own improvements. We have not reached a point of contact with DTE on this.
Thanks, Scott. And I forgot to thank Lexi. Thank you for your comments as well. Kelly, do we have any others in line?
Next is a phone call. Last four digits of the phone number is 4878. So caller with the last four of 4878. You'll need to unmute. Give us your name and address.
Oh, this is Robert Fish, and I'd like to say that my wife and I have lived at 2303 Chilson Road for nearly 50 years, and we've lived here this long because of the nature of the area, the rural landscaping, the quiet roads, at least until the last 20 years, when traffic on Chilson Road has increased dramatically. I don't want to restate all of the very well-defined objections that others who live near this proposed construction have stated, but I would like to say that we're strongly opposed to it and somewhat dismayed that the presenters as well as the commission are all talking in terms like it's a done deal and now we're just getting through the details. Well, I hope that's not the case, and I hope you take to heart the fact that local residents do not want this to turn into a nightmare of traffic, noise, and light pollution situations. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Robert. Kelly, do we have others in line?
Next is James Reeder.
Go ahead, James.
I've asked him to unmute, so we're just waiting.
James, can you hear us?
I've asked again for him to try to unmute. Should be a button in the Zoom. Oh, there it is. Can you hear us?
Yes, you got?
Is this James?
Can you hear me?
We can, James. It sounds like you've got something on in the background that's echoing. Perhaps YouTube?
Hold on one second. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, James.
Okay, James Reeder, 3217 Pineview Trail. There's been a lot of great comments. I think people have really covered this very well. I just wanted to add that when the engineers had mentioned about traffic studies and so forth, my main concern is the traffic, just like the last gentleman who spoke. And in particular, it's the intersection of Latson and Chilson Road. That intersection in its current traffic state is dangerous. And any increase in traffic flow in that area is going to really be excessively dangerous. So I'm very concerned about it. Personally, I think if it's only the chapel that's been explained and that's the only development of that property, I personally wouldn't have any complaints about that because honestly, it would have less traffic flow than if someone put a development in there and developed it. So, but with buses possibly coming in and you got 39 parking spots and you have an intersection that's already extremely dangerous in my view, it's only going to make that increasingly more dangerous. And my concern is that there's going to be some serious injuries or possibly worse in that intersection. And that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you for your input, James. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, do you have any others in line?
Next is caller 9511. Person, oh, there it is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, who's this?
My name is Jacob Bogan, live at 5790 Pinckney Road.
Go ahead, Jacob.
I just wanted to say that I also oppose the project, many of the same reasons as some of the other callers. Many like the one gentleman a little while ago basically mentioned, you know, I moved out here 15 years ago for the quiet country setting. I moved from a busy city. I've been around areas where they built churches and then it just grew. Traffic got very crazy. I know what the traffic's like now because my kids go to school at Three Fires. I do know it's already an issue. I understand that the gentleman is saying that this is all they intend to do. However, using 5 acres out of 40 acres and only having 38 parking spots does not sound like they would be very content with that in the long term. So I believe that that's just kind of getting their foot in the door. I do believe they will have other intentions down the road, regardless of what they're saying right now. It may be the only thing going on right now at the moment, but I just don't believe that it makes sense to only use that little bit of that property. So that's about it. Like I said, I know there's a better place for it, and it's not right there where they're proposing.
All right, thank you for your comments, Jacob. Kelly, do you have any others in line?
Next is caller 2463.
Go ahead,
Hello?
caller.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. What's your name?
My name is Leslie Bonett, Bonett, and my address is 3367 Chilson Road, and I live across the street from this land.
Right.
So I agree. My husband and I definitely oppose this, and we agree with all the other people have made comments. An additional concern we have is with a parking lot, depending upon how the water is directed, and if it's directed to the creek that runs on my property will continue to flood even more than it does, because all the flow in this area goes to my creek, and then I have flooding. And we've called the road commission, and they ended up putting in a new culvert. So the other concern I have is when they had the event back in September, since I live across the street, I happened to be driving by. There were tons of cars, probably I would say 60 to 80 cars on the land, and then there were cars parked along the side of the road, and a car tried to pull out and almost hit me because I couldn't see past a big white pickup. And secondary, because people miss this because there wasn't any signage, they used my circle drive as a turnaround. And my dogs are on an electric fence, and I shouldn't have to worry about people turning around in my driveway to go to this church. Again, we definitely oppose, and we live right here, right across the street from this land. So please do not approve this.
Thank you for your comments, Leslie. Kelly, do we have any others in line?
Next is caller phone number ending in 6721. Caller phone number ending in 6721. looks like I lost that, so I will move on.
Please call back if you can hear us.
Next is Bill Galvin.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for your time and everything you've invested into this. I just want to clarify some of the sentiments from people that support the project, and a lot of them feel like neighbors in this area are opposed to the project. So I do want to clarify that as a misrepresentation. Nothing could be further from the truth. People in the area have no opposition to the project. Very few people. I mean, there might be a couple, but generally speaking, the vast majority of us have no opposition to the project. This is exclusively about the address, the location, and the use of the land. And this is a residential area. Now, our residential area and our neighborhood might be different from the neighborhoods in which you live. Maybe you grew up, or maybe you live now in a neighborhood that has 60 to 100 foot wide lots. And you can look into your neighbor's garage out your side window. And that's fine, but our neighborhood is larger in scale and scope. Our neighborhood has 2 to 5 acre lots. You've heard many people talk about how we moved out here or stayed out here intentionally. I'm one of those people. I've lived my entire life in suburban Metro Detroit. We had a plan to move closer to my wife's parents and my parents. And we moved out this way, and I actually called the township and said, hey, is there any development planned up and down Chilson Road where we're looking? Because I didn't want to be near a large development of any sort. I wanted to get away from it while still having access to highways and shopping like I do up on Grand River. And at the time, the township was totally unaware of that, but I understand things change. My point is, this is still a neighborhood. Now, nobody has talked about the merits of the zoning from the Planning Commission relative to our neighborhood, larger in scale, larger in scope, but still a neighborhood. And what's being proposed and what's before you is recommending putting a destination driver in the middle of our neighborhood. So I understand it's larger in scale and scope. I've repeated that. But what if that destination was in a smaller neighborhood? I think the vote would be, the view would be automatic that this doesn't fit. And what we're trying to propose and what our point is that this doesn't fit in our neighborhood either. There are no structures that are 6,000 to 7,000 feet. Maybe a barn. That's appropriate for agricultural zoning. But there's no structures that are destinations meant to attract people in the middle of neighborhoods typically. So I'm waiting to hear a conversation about special land use tests. It's in the code, it's in the zoning code. I'd like to hear a conversation that talks about the merits of our zoning, the merits of representing the citizens and our interests, and how the project doesn't meet many of those special land use tests, specifically a destination driver, which is not in the master plan. And we can go on about the character, and everybody else who's talked about that was certainly on point. Little humorous sidebar, Kelly, you should hire Lexi. She knows what she's talking about. If you vote yes on this, you're going to launch an irreversible path that we don't know what direction it's going in. We think we do, but we're not exactly sure. If you recommend to the trustees to deny this, I think you have the opportunity to reset the conversation, to reset the dialogue, and let's talk with stakeholders in the community at large about the best solution on where to bring this in the community. We have no opposition to the project. We want the project. We'd love to see the hospital, the medical school. I'd love to see Mike O'Day get his policy research center in the appropriately zoned and located places. Some of it will take financing, and those are barriers and challenges that are always going to have to be addressed. Let's address them. So I think if you recommend this for not approval, sorry for my poor choice of words there, but I think it will actually elevate a dialogue to get this done the right way. The last thing I want to talk about is the messaging problem. CHI has a tremendous branding messaging problem that needs to be fixed. It's not going to get fixed with the current letter, because all the current letter does on the Facebook page is say, here's where we are not building it. There's a tremendous amount of skepticism out here in the community that everything else is fair game. It's the Wild West of Genoa Township. I attended Mass yesterday virtually through Facebook at Holy Spirit Catholic Church in Brighton. And at the conclusion of Mass, pastor during the announcements made reference to this meeting and how this was for the approval of the chapel and the hospital. There's a big messaging problem. My local priests, where I go to church potentially, are telling me something different from what CHI is telling us this evening. Who am I to believe? So you got to really work on the messaging, and that's constructive criticism. I hope you take it that way, but until that messaging is more consistent, until it's more clear, until you're telling us where you're looking, is it Montana, is it Delaware, or is it somewhere in Michigan? As long as all you're going to do is tell us where you're not looking, it's just this 40 acres. And as long as we hear the local parishes saying that a hospital is what we want to come here, you're going to continue to suffer from a credibility issue, at least in the neighborhoods. So please take my comments under advisement. I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to hopefully hearing a dialogue about the merits of special land use tests relative to putting a destination inside of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Bill. We appreciate those. Kelly, do we have any others in queue?
Next is Cynthia Tellup.
Hi, I as well live off of Crooked Lake Road in Genoa Township. And I agree with all of my fellow neighbors, and everything that's been brought up are good issues. I do have to say that listening to everything tonight, I've kind of lost my faith and trust in the CHI, what they told us tonight. First, I'm not going to go over what everybody else said, but first with the bell use, how they brought it back to noon and 6 p.m. now with manual use. There's going to be a lot of people that manually use that bell, especially if obviously parents bring their children to churches. So there's going to be a lot of ringing besides noon and 6. They also stated 1 mass per week with up to 3 masses per week was their short-term goal, with maybe 1 mass per day. 1 mass per day can bring in a lot of people. I've been to churches for my whole life. Maybe 10 people might come to a Tuesday mass, but there might be 100 to 200 people. If you have 38 spaces and 5 people can fit in each car, that's 195 people that can come to church with 2 bathrooms. I don't know how many stalls those bathrooms have in it, hopefully more than just 1 apiece with the handicap spots. But that's a lot of cars for that many. In addition to, if you have to bring people shuttled in for special events, I assume you're going to have outbuildings to go to the bathroom, because 2 bathrooms are not going to be big enough for busloads of people. I do think that this is the start of a large development. I know that you're saying, you're going to have a normal mass. What is normal? Normal is a broad term. You can't take a doctor to a law court and say, well, you said they had normal blood pressure. What's normal for me is not normal for the person sitting next to me. And again, the no advertise, you said you took stuff down off your Facebook page, which you did, but you're still advertising. You're putting the address on there, 3280. I hope everybody had a time to stop by and visit the land. I hope you check out our new web pages to learn support in phase 1, building of the grotto and the adoption chapel, phase 2, the Terry Schiavato home of the brain injured. So that's still out there. I always raise my children to tell the truth, because trust is a hard thing to gain back. So telling us things that obviously everybody's been researching is not a good thing in our eyes. Even, we're opposed to it to begin with because it's zoned 5-acre parcels. And then you kind of skating around different topics and not just coming out and spilling out the truth is even hits harder. So I am opposed to this, obviously. I would love denial by the board. And I agree with the roads too, the Lats and Crooked Lake with the schools. That's very dangerous right there. People run through those stoplights all the time. Stop signs, I'm sorry. So thank you for letting me speak, and I will let the next person speak.
Thanks, Cynthia. Kelly, do we have another in line?
Next caller is Derek.
Derek, go ahead.
Hello.
Say it's your husband.
Hello.
Hi there. Go ahead. It comes up as Derek, but give us your name and address.
Yes, this is Derek and Jessica Sproul. The address is 2099 and 2185 Chilson Road. My family and myself, we've been here about 37 years, give or take. I am a mom that does go to 3 fires. Since the COVID stuff, the traffic has been an absolute nightmare. We actually have our daughter riding the bus right now because of the traffic situation just in the morning. I mean, if you guys are out and about, the people that are for this, you maybe need to drive down Chilson Road, hit Latson, Crooked Lake Road, and even Door Road, backing up that way. It's crazy to where I don't feel safe taking my kid to drop her off because it's chaotic. And then you go down to where Latson and Chilson at the blinking light where you stop and go. I personally have almost gotten in a couple accidents because people don't pay attention and there's high volume of times through there. So I am terrified of all this extra traffic and stuff. And I don't oppose this church and what their beliefs are. It has nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing. I just feel that there's another place for this in our township. We welcome it, but my neighbors, myself, we just don't support the spot. And I really, really, truly hope that our township supports us and takes in consideration what we feel. Like, I feel you guys should be backing us up because we've been here. We're the ones paying our taxes. We're supporting our township. I hope you guys are going to support our feelings on this. It's a crazy area over there. And, and then you get the roundabout. I mean, it's just going to be more accidents. I mean, I don't want to ramble on and keep going on, but I just really feel that I hope the township really takes this into consideration. But and I support all my neighbors, and that's really why I'm here. I don't approve of all this bell ringing and stuff like that they're wanting to do, even if it's only a couple times a day. I mean, we all bought into here because it's country estates. We want the quiet country setting. There's other places for this. It really boils down to that. Sell the property, take the money. You guys got money, and buy a place where it's going to be acceptable for everybody. And that's pretty much all I got to say. And everybody that said everything's hit every point that I want, and I hope you guys understand. But it's Jessica Sproul, Sproull, at 2099 Chilson Road. And thank you guys for letting us all talk and say what we need to say.
Thank you, Jessica, for calling in.
Yeah.
Kelly, do we have others in line?
We do have other callers. I just also want to make reference to the phone number that was having difficulty connecting earlier. Did reach out to our moderators at American Video. They're having some technical problems and just wanted me to pass along. I didn't get a name, unfortunately, but it's the president of the Oak Meadows subdivision. Wanted the commission to know that he or she is opposed to the project and agrees with the other comments made here this evening. So moving on, next we have Pat.
Go ahead, Pat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Pat, go ahead.
Pat Powers up on Kellogg Road. Not adjacent to the property, but this project has my full support. I think there's a community of faith that's not going to speak here tonight, maybe because they don't live adjacent to the property, but certainly I live it in the mass, in the conversations that I'm having, and I think it's hard to, address the real function of this mission. This church is really one of heavenly appeal, and I think people are trying so hard to frame it in an earthly term. And traffic, I mean, they're starting with the Sunday mass, and that's, traffic is not their problem. The function of this church is to serve souls, and it's fundamental to the fabric of being an American. And I'm so proud to live in Genoa Township. I've served in the Navy, so I've been around the country, all over the place, and I love living here. I think it's an attractive community. I love the relationship people have. I love, it's people really get what it means to be an American, and I think a mission like this is so essential, especially in the times that we're living in now. And I think for the neighbors, they're trying to frame it in a situation and in terms. It's so temporary, but the real fruits of this church is certainly going to outweigh it, and you're going to see it in the long term. And I think everybody will see it in the long term, given approval. Because it's because this community is attractive. It's hard to buy property. My wife and I looked for a long time to find this house, and we found it. And we're real proud of it. And it's hard to buy property around here. And that they were gifted this property by the Diocese of Lansing. And I don't think God works in accidents. And I know there's not a lot of religious people maybe they've been calling in, but it's hard and it's painful, especially during this time, to know as a core belief of Catholicism that Jesus Christ is present in that church, that you're going to be neighbors not only with people that want to worship and pray, but you're going to be neighbors with Jesus Christ. That's the core essence of Catholicism. And I think you shouldn't forget that. And I think in the short term, people are afraid, and I get it. You don't know what you don't know, but I think if you just trust in God, and I know it's hard to say in these planning commission sort of frame about this, but if you trust in God, you're going to see some good fruit. So that's all I have to say. You have my full support.
Thank you, Pat. Kelly, do we have others in line?
Next is Katie Johnson.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Katie.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. My name is Katie Johnson, Johnson. I live at 3352 Brighton Road. I just like to say I agree with the majority of previous commenters. There's a long-term intent here for larger goals that have been stated. I respectfully request that the board decline the request for special use application. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Do we have any others in queue, Kelly?
Next is caller 0903. I'm asking them to unmute. Phone number ending in 0903. It looks like that might be a repeat call, so I'm gonna move. Oh. All right, just one moment, please. Looks like we just have repeat comments up right now. If
Okay.
I guess I'll leave that to you, Mr. Chair. Anyone who has not already addressed the Planning Commission and wishes to do so, please raise your hand or dial *9 if you're on your phone. Otherwise, Mr. Chair, I'll leave it up to you if you want to take repeat comments or secondary comments.
So Kelly, you're indicating that there are folks that would like to speak again.
Yes, sir. And it looks like I have one new one. So I'm going to grab this one. Phone number ending in 9837. Caller 9837, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, hello. My name is Linda Holland. I live at 3023 Pardee. My property is adjacent, backs up the property in that we're speaking about tonight, just on the other side of the tracks. And like many of those who are calling tonight, I've lived out here since my husband and I came out here in '95, and we came out here because we wanted space, we wanted quiet. And I want to thank my neighbors, those who I know who called, those who that I don't know, for your informed and reasoned comments on this. And I'd like to add that for me, the vision of a parking lot in a building just the other side of the tracks from my home is just something I can't reconcile. It does not make sense. There's cornfields, you know, within a short distance of there, horses, alpaca farms. I mean, this is a rural area, and that's why we came out here, and we need to preserve that. Once this goes through, and I pray it doesn't, it changes it permanently. It changes our area permanently, and I'm asking you not to approve it. To the person who implied that the majority of people that are calling in are not religious or Catholic or spiritual, I think that's a little unfair. It has nothing to do with that. We support this mission. I admire it, and I would welcome it in the area, but it does not belong here. And I'm asking you to deny the special use. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Linda. Kelly, do we have others?
We just have a repeat, Mr. Chairman.
How many do we have, Kelly?
Currently just one that has their hand
Let's
up.
take one more then.
Okay, this is Deborah Oberpaul.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Hi, thanks for hearing me out again. So I just want to comment again, kind of reiterating what the person just before me said, which is this isn't really based on people lacking religion or spirituality, and it has everything to do with what's the right thing to do for the character of the area. And I would reiterate that Melanie had an excellent point several speakers ago about the number of pilgrimage travelers that there will be to this site. And that's got to be taken into consideration. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time as well, Deborah. We appreciate you taking the time. All right, Kelly, are there any others, or are we all set?
I have one more new number, sir.
All right, let's take them.
Phone number ending in 8436.
Yeah, this is Dawn Williams, and we live on Westfall Road. I can't give you the legalities of the situation. I don't know them, but I can tell you that it's not right for our location. People in this area don't want it. Why can't they, if this property was donated to them, why can't they sell the property, take that money, build somewhere else? What stops them from, once they start building out here, to not build anymore? They're going to build more. We see it. It's going to happen. And most important, do the people in this area even have a voice? Do we have the choice, the real choice for it to be here? Put it in your neighborhood if you want it. If you live on Kellogg Road and you want it in your neighborhood, put it in your neighborhood. But out here, we don't want it. We're quiet. We love it out here. The long-term goals, I do believe, is that they're going to build more. And I'm going to thank all of my neighbors that were out here today and stood up for our right, because I do think that we have the right and we have the voice, and we don't want it. And that's all I'm going to say, and I'm going to thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling in. All right, Kelly, I think I'm going to close the call to the public now, unless there's others that have jumped in.
There are no new members.
Okay, I apologize to any of those that have tried and were unsuccessful in getting in. I think we've got a very good cross-section of opinions and points, some very good points. And I'd like to bring the meeting back to the group, close this call to the public, and look for any questions or any final questions or comments from the commission. Go ahead, Eric.
Appreciate everyone's comments, the public comments, comments from the petitioner as well, and appreciate everyone having a respectful dialogue too. So I just, on behalf of that, I'm just grateful that we can have a fruitful dialogue out of this. I was doing a little bit of research on our maps and thinking about in our community in Genoa Township, what other churches exist in a country estates zoning district? And I might be wrong on this, but I couldn't find any. Single family residential zoning districts, Chilson Hills is located in an SR zoning district. And then there's the Baptist Church north up on Chilson, a couple of miles over the highway, that also is in an SR district. But as far as country estates, I don't see in our community any church that's in that zoning district. Now, the ordinance with approval of a special use permit does accommodate it, obviously, which is why we're here this evening. But that is, as I come back to that portion of the special use requirements of the character of the area, that is the struggle. That is the tension and the struggle here. And so that's what I'm wrestling through right now, is that struggle. If the request were for a grotto and a walking trails and a prayer area, I think that this would be an easier request. But it is for a church with regular services that, according to the operations plan, would be one service at first and potentially grow over time with a long-term view of every single day. And that does concern me in country estates. And so, as I've sat here and listened to the petitioner and listened to the public, I'm still feeling uneasy about this project in regards to its compatibility with the surrounding area. And so that's where I'm at right now, but certainly open to, more conversation with the Planning Commission in these regards. So.
All right, Jeff, you've got your hand up. You're next.
Sure. Eric stole a little bit of my thunder. I too can appreciate that. It sounds like, the folks want peace and tranquility. They want the hiking trail, the stations at the cross. I think the issue is it's the church, it's the building. Gosh, if it was a bunch of guys coming out to hunt on 40 acres, it doesn't seem like anybody else or gals to hunt on 40 acres, no one would have a big issue. But once the creation of the building and the parking lot, the potential of a noise issue. That's the concern. I'm very empathetic. North Shore didn't exist. I'm straight across the street from it. Poof. Within 3 years, there are 400 houses across the road from me. I get it. Everyone likes where we built, why we live here. Now the township has the mandate. We follow what our zoning is like. We follow the special use permits. And I would really actually love to hear from the applicant. Have you considered selling the property? Have you considered using the property without the church? I'd like to hear those other things. So thank you.
Can I just? Jim, I see you've had your hand raised, Jim. Go ahead.
What about the Chaldean church? Isn't that surrounded by residential or country estate agriculture?
I'm not sure.
I'm just addressing the point that there's no other.
It is in a rural setting, but it's more of a camp and then converted to a church facility, I believe. Because it started out as kind of a lodge and camp and that type of thing, but.
Mr. Chairman, that property is zoned PRF, so Parks and Recreational Facilities.
Okay.
To the south is country estate zoning. To the west is low density residential. To the north is agricultural.
Okay. And it looks like Jeff has a follow-up question.
Well, but the church was built long after the camp was there. I just want to correct that one point of Eric's.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, Jim.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Jeff, did you have something else?
No, but I did. This is
Nope,
Jill.
I'm good.
Go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, I guess I was a little bit caught off guard by the amount of people that come to these pilgrim sites. That was kind of a surprise to me. I wasn't too worried about a church as much as I was the pilgrimage aspect. I guess I would like some more information from the developer on that aspect.
All right, would we like to open this up to the developer or do we have other questions?
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions and comments.
We'll put them in queue and then we'll let Scott and his group answer all of them at once. Go ahead, Mary Ann.
So as you recall, Mr. Chair, we sat in the township meeting from 9 to 5 today to review the Board of Review for Appeals for people that are coming in to appeal for their taxes and their rights to do that and what they anticipate the value of their property. As I sat in that room for 9 hours, I stared at the zoning map straight ahead of me. And that zoning map where this property lies is a 36 square mile area in that one section, section 20, of which there's only 2 areas which are significantly minor in that whole entire area that are a different zoning than your country estates. One of them is rural development. So that's a rural, which is 2 acre minimum, and one is a PUD. But as I stared at that map showing that very prominently outlaid area, which actually has a buffer to the north and to the south of the same zoning. And as I drive that daily, it's a continual reminder that is zoned country estates for a reason. And that country estates definition is it's an established district where principal use is residential with smaller scale farming and raising of horses and livestock, typically an accessory use. The health and safety and the welfare of the contribution of this district is to retain the rural atmosphere and quality of life while accommodating compatible, very low density residential development. And I think, Eric, to your point, I don't see, even though a special use is allowed to request for this, I don't see where it's in harmony of what the master plan is. And I think the word master plan is extremely ironic here, as well as significant, because we're talking about the master plan of the township, the master plan of which our residents understand that they will follow and we will follow. We're talking about a master plan that the Catholic Health Church has for the growth of their church. And we're talking about the master plan of God in this universe. And that word talks about harmony and things being congruent and things being, when you talk about neighborly, harmony, all of those things are really important in looking at that reflect in the proposal of what they're trying to do here as far as the applicant. I love the idea. I have nothing against the idea. I sell this community and the surrounding county every day. And the first question people say to me when they look at a piece of property and they see whatever is behind them is nothing, they say, what is going to go there? They want to know what the anticipated opportunity of change is going to be. And the expectation that a church is going to be there is not one that is a answer that people would most likely hear. I love the idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. I don't believe that this place, this lot, this location is suitable to create a harmonious environment for the big master plan.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mary Ann. We're going to move over to Jill. Go ahead, Jill.
The only thing I can say is that because it isn't allowed special use, I think that there is an opportunity for a church to go in these areas. So when when you say that you're selling the area, just because it's a vacant field now, I can't say that I would ever consider that a big 40-acre parcel, no matter where I was, would stay a 40-acre parcel untouched by anybody ever. So, that's just my 2 cents on that.
Understood. And what you always have to refer to is the zoning. And when you refer to the zoning is country estates. So the general person, the general, public that would be thinking about what can go there, country estates, their synonym is they're looking around, they're looking at cornfields, they're looking at horses, they're looking at farmhouses. They're this church, the alignment of how that is congruous with the surrounding properties just doesn't seem like it's the right place.
Can I say a couple things?
Go ahead, Jim.
First of all, the property owner has rights too. It doesn't matter how he got the property, when he got the property, or where he got the property. He's got the same property rights as anybody else. Longevity of ownership doesn't have a thing to do with it. Secondly, our ordinance, for better or worse, says a church is a special use in every residential zoning district. Now the ordinance says it has to be compatible with a master plan, or a master plan is built around. It provides for special uses of churches and whole bunch of other things. There's a whole bunch of other things that doesn't do that are permitted or are let's say not speaking against this project. For example, there's no drain on public services such as sewer and water because there's septic and well. There's no particular demands on police and fire because it's just a low volume use. No effect on schools. So I think they have the right to use their property. We provide for it in our ordinance. I mean, where, and you use the argument, well, it's compatible with the area. Where is a church ever compatible with any area? So I come at this a different direction. I think they've gone overboard to try to make an operations plan that's sensitive to the neighbors, and so I have a different take on this whole thing.
Thanks, Jim. I think I saw Glennis reach for a button.
Yeah, my only thing is I keep coming back to the master plan and the vision of the master plan when it was put in place, and what you envisioned would be placed in those areas that you've designated. And I have to believe, not having been part of a master plan development, but I have to believe that infrastructure, traffic, is played into that. And the idea, and I have to agree with the both the intersections at Chilson Road and Grand River and Chilson Road and Latson are horrible. And you add, you start adding anywhere between 200-300 cars a day, maybe as high as 2,000 or 3,000, 20,000, 50,000 if this pilgrimage is going to play out, which they certainly have the land to do it, especially as outdoor retreats. I see this as a real problem for the landowners around there and the community that travels through there. And that's the reason why we have a master plan. And that's the reason why we designate the master plan the way it is, where we have high density, where we have the infrastructure to be able to manage it. And so I still come back to that. That was the intent of the township when they put it there. And yes, the landowner has a right, and so do the churches, but there are better places. And that's why we plan.
Thanks, Glennis.
Mr. Chairman.
So the one other point I just make it, again, all of this discussion about hundreds of thousands of people and all kinds of other projects on this property. That's not what's before us tonight. What's before us is a very limited, defined, well-defined scope of a project. And in my opinion, that's what we vote up or down.
But I think the land, I just want to add, I think that the extra land there gives it much greater scope than just 40 parking places. And we heard neighbors complaining about people parking up and down Chilson Road. And the fact that that land is there, I think lends itself to a whole lot more traffic and a whole lot of outdoor activity 9 months out of the year. So I don't think it's just the church. I think you have to look at it in its totality. And what that church, how many people that church can bring to that parcel of land.
I disagree with that. You have to look at what is being presented to you tonight. You cannot consider what the future land use or what their future plans are, because they will have to come back to this board at a later, or our board and the planning commission at a later time. Tonight, it's only about this church. And, I am supportive of property rights, and I am also supportive of understanding, though, fully with this pilgrimage, and that to me is the kicker right now. But tonight we are looking at a simple plan for a church, and it is a special land use in every district. If we had wanted to limit the districts that it could be applied for and a church be offered, we should have done that in the planning with our ordinances, in my opinion.
Go ahead, Eric. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah. I agree 100%, Jim. We have to look at this plan and what we know right now based off of the information they've submitted. And you mentioned the Chaldean church, and I was thinking about that a little bit more. I think one significant difference, that was a camp bought by the Chaldean church, and then they constructed the church, but that's a use that's in direct connection with the camp functions, right? So it's not a church that's utilized every single week and people are coming in and out and things. It's something that's in direct connection with the functions of the camp. So I do think that this is a little bit different than that. The other thing too is, thinking about the character of the area. Marianne, you had pointed out looking at the zoning map all day, and that this spot kind of sits right in the middle of country estates. For me, I'd have a little bit easier time if some of the adjacent properties were of a more intense zoning than what we see with country estates. I would have an easier time with this, but that's not what we see, nor do we see that even like 1, 2, or 3 properties away. It kind of does sit in our community in the midst of that country estate zoning. And so the fact that it's not on the fringes also kind of bothers me a bit. I think that if this were in a country estate zoning and it was adjacent to some more intense zoning districts, that this project to me wouldn't be as difficult a decision or choice. But I'm still very very much not really seeing myself being in favor at this moment in regards to this, because of that. It sits in the middle of country estates and a church with weekly functions, and the even pilgrimage, all that. Like I think we're guessing on what that impact is. Just a church function of the size that we're talking and looking at seems a bit out of character in the middle of our country estate zoning. And that's my personal opinion right now.
Can I see a hand up for Jeff?
Yep. Again, I think everyone's making excellent points, and there's part of me that is still with, I still would like to hear a little bit more from the applicant again, very specific about those pilgrimages. And again, I think you have to keep in mind, it is their property. I'd love to know if they ever considered selling it. Everybody wants what we already have. They want the peace. They want the serenity. Again, my heartburn is just, we asked for the operations. It would start small. We've heard it will grow bigger. It'll get used more. 38 parking spots is a pretty darn small spot. It's tough. And I think if you believe that Crooked Lake Road is always going to stay old Crooked Lake Road, one day it's going to get bigger. Just the nature of things going. So it's up to us to have some control to it. But we have an applicant in front of us today who's met almost every hoop that we have asked them to jump through. So still want to hear from the applicant again. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions from the commission at this point? Okay. And Scott, I'm about ready to turn it over to your group, but I want to put this out to the group. We've been at this for about 3 hours. Would we like to get up and stretch our legs for 5 minutes and then come back?
Yes.
Saying some nods yes and some nods no. Let's come back at 25 after 9 if you don't mind.
If the planning commission would like a little recess, what time did you say?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What time did you say you'd like to come back?
How about 25 minutes after? We'll just take a
Okay,
quick break. Get up and stretch.
9:25. All right.
Thank you. All right, I think we're back. Is everybody back online here? We've got, there's Eric. We're looking for Jeff.
I'm here.
All right,
Is
are
Jeff
we
the only
ready?
one we're missing right now? There's Jeff. Hi, Jeff. All right, Scott, I think you've heard a lot on in both directions. I'll throw my 2 cents in. I think we've asked an awful lot of you guys. And for the most part, the things that we've asked for have been handled. This is the due diligence that you do in the due process that you're afforded because you own a piece of property and you have the right to come to before this board or this commission to request a special use. It's a right that you have, and that's what our country is supposed to be built on. So I'm proud to be part of this situation tonight where we can exchange ideas and do so in a manner that isn't accusatory or belittling on either side. I think that there were some very good points made by the residents of the area. And my suggestion might be if this were to move forward and be approved, would be that, you know, the CHI reach out to some of these folks and have them understand a little bit better of what you're doing and offer that tranquility and the things that you're talking about to help them better understand that there isn't going to be a hospital and there isn't going to be a medical building or a medical school on that site. So with that, I'll get off my soapbox and I'll let you guys respond to the questions that you've had. Scott, please go ahead.
All right, thank you. Yeah, there was a lot of feedback, and we definitely want to talk to them. First, let's start out. I think something that we can talk about simply is a past event that happened on the site last year and consequences of that event. It's been brought up multiple times that cars were parked on Chilson Road, even that some were using driveways to turn around, which isn't appropriate. The big reason for that is there is no sign. People didn't know. I mean, there's, I think, a little 8.5 by 11. There's a very small indication that that's the site that people need to go at. So obviously we would move forward and then want to go through the sign permitting route and get a sign to direct people where they should be turning. Additionally, there really was no designated, yes, there's fields, a couple of fields in the property, but there's no designated parking areas. So it was more or less a free-for-all at that point, and people were just, you know, driving in traffic, you want to be predictable, and signing is the way to do that. Not only that, but also a parking lot. So we believe that events in the past projecting onto events in the future, we think all those are accommodated with our improvements. Additionally, with regards to traffic, there was a lot of concern about traffic as well. Will this generate more traffic than a single house? Yes, it will. There's no denying that. Are there other uses that are allowed, whether it be a special land use or that are permitted that would facilitate additional traffic beyond just one house? There are. Additionally, you got to think about from an operational standpoint and having people in a mass, who is attending, you know, who's your target? Obviously Catholics and those wanting to explore and to have a place of peace and tranquility. When we're talking about traffic in respect to the school, right? Loading and unloading at the beginning and end of school days. I mean, that's not conducive to having a mass time, not only for traffic concerns, but also the people that are using it, you know, they may be parents, they may not be. So they don't go hand in hand, they don't line up. You know, we've already stated that peak traffic hours are avoided. So traffic in our opinion isn't really an issue, especially when as it relates to buses or shuttles. We would think that would be a positive on behalf of the residents, because you don't have 15 cars, you have one shuttle turning in. So we thought that was a very favorable option presented. Also, I want to talk about country estate zoning and the idea of churches and why there are or aren't any churches currently in country estate. I can't confirm or deny that there is or isn't, but going off of Commissioner Eric's statement that there isn't, I would like to just phrase it a different way. Why aren't there? You know, how do churches operate? You know, typical churches, they need visibility, right? They need people driving by and seeing them. We're not promoting that. We don't want to promote that. We want the peace and tranquility. That's why the chapel is, I believe, like 600 feet off Chilson Road, tucked behind stands of trees unseen. That's the whole purpose. We want that setting. So we're not trying to get visibility in that regard. Secondly is, why churches aren't typically developed in country estate is the infrastructure. Typically, the infrastructure isn't there, water and sewer. It's very difficult, it's possible, but very difficult to construct a church of at least a reasonable scale in an area that doesn't have those public facilities. Once you get into septic design for larger churches and the loading that happens typically on Sundays, it gets very difficult, let alone you're at the mercy of the soils on the site. One example is there was a church that owned a piece of property that was country estate, I believe. I think it's Beck Road that intersects Latson. So it is further north. There was no public infrastructure down that area of Beck Road. The road wasn't there to support it. You couldn't build a church there. That obviously has prompted the church to go in a different direction. So they had to leave that mission on that site because of those reasons. So we think that is the primary driver of why churches aren't found in country estates. But the mission of this, of CHI, is not the same as those churches. It is a different mission. So that kind of transitions into, what is it, right? We talked about pilgrims, we talked about natural features. You know, why would somebody say this is not in harmony with the surrounding area? Is it farming? No, this is not a farming use that we're proposing, obviously. But what if you think about it as harmony in the sense of preserving the land? You know, we're preserving almost all the property. We're building on as minimal as possible to preserve that property for the benefit of everybody, you know, the benefit of the public to preserve those buffers around the property, but also to be able to have trails that that meander through the woods so people can get out and enjoy the nature and find that peace. So to paint this as a church, like in a traditional sense of a church, does definitely lead you in a direction that's, you can kind of see why it wouldn't be harmonious. But that is not this church's use. That's not what this chapel is for. Additionally, you know, going back to the natural features, we're kind of in a hard place. You know, there's comments about, well, you're only developing on 4 to 5 acres near the front of the site. You're leaving the rest open. Like it's not being developed. There must be an ulterior motive. There is space to build a hospital. There's been comments like those. But if we were to go through and put the church near the back of the site, we'd be cutting through the woods to do that. We'd be trying to address and justify why we're doing that in our natural features plan or an environmental impact assessment. We have no justification to do that. The site as it lays out with respect to natural vegetation lends itself to the layout that we have. It does. The open areas where the parking is going, where the chapel is going, those are the 2 primary open areas at the front of the site. So the rest is left natural, not for ulterior uses. It's left natural for everybody's benefit. Again, if we were to use the back of the site for building and development, we'd have to justify why. And all of a sudden, the whole conversation changes. So we're almost trapped. If we use too much, we can't justify it. If we use too little, it casts this picture of doubt. So it really puts us in a hard spot on how do we convince anybody that that's what we're doing. With respect to pilgrimage and the sites that were brought up from, I don't know if they were all within the country or if there were some outside the country, but I mean, sure, we can go and handpick sites, I think, as well. We can pick smaller pilgrimage sites that are more appropriate. And yes, she provided kind of proof that that site area of, I think one of them was maybe 10 acres or 30 acres, can generate that much traffic and pilgrims. But again, we can handpick some from around the world and probably even in Michigan or surrounding states, just like was presented to present the same other case. Just a few other points to wrap up is really, we addressed, as was mentioned by, I believe, a few of you commissioners, that we presented a plan. We were provided a handful of items that are typically beyond usual project, documentation, and we were happy to do so. We believe we accommodated all those questions and concerns. There's still concern about the use of the bell at all, but we believe we've gone above and beyond to address all the concerns that were brought up within the motion of last month's meeting. And at this point, beyond what we've stated here, kind of our dialogue about country estate and harmony with surrounding parcels and kind of how you define that, we don't know what else we would be able to offer to bridge that gap.
Yeah, and I would only add, I think I almost feel like we're in a situation where we've created something and responded, and what we're trying to do is almost too good to believe. So they don't believe us. They just absolutely don't believe that we're just putting a small little country church in a 45-acre property that we want people to come and be able to walk through trails on. We talked about even internally in that 200 cars a day. That can't happen. We're allowing ourselves to be limited by the scope of the parking that's there. We don't want that. We are not an international pilgrim shrine. When we use it, we've caught ourselves in, and I think we made two errors in terminology in this. In the very beginning, we called our mural wall a grotto, and that stuck. That's not a grotto. That is a little wall with a picture on it in that. And it got us, everybody still calls it a grotto. A grotto is a cave that you walk into and things like that. But it was something from aesthetics perspective, we said that. The other is to say pilgrims will be coming here. A pilgrim is one person who comes to pray. We're not advertising this out to get bus loads of pilgrims to come in and that. We want this to be truly our prayer foundation, mostly for the local diocese and the participating parishes that are supporting what it is we're doing, to come and pray and to build a devotion to Padre Pio, to pray to him so that we can accomplish our bigger visions. And I think that's the other thing, that it's too good to be true. We do have a big vision to replicate this most amazing hospital. Who ever heard of a home for the relief of suffering? It's not just there to make people well. It's there to serve and relieve the suffering of people. It's a very special place. This medical school, I know you're not all Catholic and everything, but there's 6 Catholic medical schools, and we're Catholics, and we don't think they're good Catholic medical schools. We don't think that they uphold the tenets of the support of those who are suffering, those who are the most vulnerable, the Terry Scheibels of the world. So we're replicating this beautiful hospital and teaching physicians how to practice in what we consider a secular world that frankly goes out sometimes out of its way to kill people. And we think that's wrong, so we're trying to do something different. But now on this site, this prayer foundation is going to do that. So I really do believe, I know they don't know us from Adam and everything. And what we're trying to say, I think, comes across as, oh yeah, too good to be true. They're not really going to be. No, we really are. We really believe in the power of prayer. And it's what's gotten us. We created an international Eucharistic adoration program. It's never been done in the world. We have people around the world praying for the success and for the patients that we'll be caring for in that. So I just, just appeal to that. All of these, so many of these things, and I did notice the change in the tone of some of the callers today versus last time, because we did respond to some of those other things, and they said, okay, they didn't respond to those. They hit more the nature of the area and things like that because they understood now, they accepted the fact, most of them, that we're not going to build a hospital on there. And that's we definitively there. So I lay that out there. It's not going to be a high value thing. We don't want it to be a high value thing. It is a very special place, and it will be something. To me, I always envisioned this as the perfect setting. The country church, the little 80-seat country church that people come into to pray and then wander the trails and pray in front of the statues and that sort of thing. And that's what we want to have it be. So anyway, I really do appreciate it. And I think you all have been very, very understanding. And it's hard to sit here and listen to the criticism when you're trying to do something good. And I think you people have been understanding, and I appreciate it. And I hope that you'll support us in what we're doing, because we really do genuinely. We're trying to do something, and what we're saying we're going to do is what we're going to do. So
yeah, and then just lastly about the zoning, whether it's being in the midst of a sea of country estate and agricultural zoning. I believe across the street there is a rural residential, which yes, it is still residential. But then once you go south and once you get to that Chilson Road and Latson Road intersection, that's where you start seeing large, smaller neighborhoods, and then it just keeps growing. So, and we're not far from that Chilson-Latson intersection. We're north of that. So, with that being said, we've talked about the natural features and how do you define what is harmony with the area and country estate. So, if there's any additional questions on what we just mentioned, by all means.
Do we have any additional questions from any of the commissioners?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
In the, can you address the quote unquote grotto, the statue, whatever the reference is, that is built on the property, and the current existence of it? Because I believe that there was communications between the township and the church regarding the process of what has to happen for procedurally to comply with permits and buildings there. Can you expound on that?
I can speak to it a little bit, and then if Jerry feels the need to jump in and add on, you may. Originally, the grotto, or this mural wall, was starting to be constructed. There were conversations between the CHI and the township regarding that mural wall that you see in the picture. Those conversations, there was a lot of back and forth. Ultimately, it was decided that no foundation should be put in on that yet. So it is not permanent. It is stabilized with other reinforcing above grade, but they halted any additional construction on that with respect to foundations in accordance with the conversation with the township. Additionally, there was exactly what you mentioned about what is the process of erecting this particular structure. It was brought to their attention that they should hire somebody to navigate through that with them. And shortly thereafter, based on the time of our contract, the timestamps on those correspondences between CHI and the township, that CHI did do their due diligence and promptly, they ended up reaching out to us, Boss Engineering, to work with them through that. So other than it being there, they did not build the permanent foundations for it. So it's temporary, and then they proceeded to immediately contract with us to work with them through this whole process.
Yeah, and I would only add to that we actually came, we truly wanted to be fully transparent. So we came and explained to several of you all, the staff anyway, what our plans were, and told them this was before we built anything. And they told us that you need a permit to be able to put the footings in and to build it permanently. If you wanted to do it, we told them that we wanted to do it for this event that we had coming up and everything. They said, well, if you wanted to do that, You can put it up without footings and make it temporary, put it in a position where it could, if it had to be taken down, it would have to be taken down in that. And so that's how we did build that based on that input. It still is sitting there. We'd love to, if we could get the approval, to put the footings in underneath it, but we're assuming, and it will have to be dismantled to be able to put the footings back in. It's being supported with rear supports on it so that it doesn't show to the front, but there's absolutely no footings under it. It's very secure, but it does not have the footings. And that was based on the input that was provided by the township. We tried to follow that as much as possible, well, completely.
Well, our understanding of it.
Our understanding, whatever, yeah.
I'm a little bit baffled because I have a completely different picture of what you just described. I read through all the transcripts and all the letters back and forth between the township's attorney, your attorney, and they became pretty contentious. And the fact that you still have that erected and haven't had it inspected is irresponsible. Those things should have been either taken down or dismantled in some way or another. It wasn't inspected. It wasn't approved as a building or an auxiliary item on the site, and it shouldn't be up still. There isn't any question in my mind. So to say that you want the letter of the law with the township and we're transparent, this is the kind of thing that boils my blood and takes me to another level of, well, if they're saying they're doing this with the church and the grotto, now mural wall, what's going to happen in the future? Because they are telling us they were transparent, but in all actuality, and we can provide you the email chain, it's not that way. It was a back and forth, very contentious conversation between attorneys. And quite frankly, I was taken aback by it, that someone would come into our community, ask us what we needed to do, we'd tell them, and then they'd go in a different direction. So transparency was not your big thing there. And I want to make that very, very clear. It's disappointing for me to hear you describe it that way after everything that you've said this evening.
Kelly, you were at that first meeting with us. You, I believe, and Amy, and I believe Bill Rogers, where we talked about what we wanted to do. And we had a lot of discussions about how we could do this and the issues that were around it. And someone suggested that we build it, put it on a flatbed, bring it in, set it down. The things that were said most specifically was don't put any footings on it or anything to make it permanent, and no foundations. And so we went out of that thinking, what can we do? And so we built it like that without footings and put it there. Now, where the contentions came into play was when a violation notice was sent and we had to respond because we would get a violation, and we talked to an attorney and we said, because here's why we did what we did. And the attorney responded back, and we had a couple go back and forth with the attorneys, and then and then it stopped. We sent a final thing and no one said, take it down. We built it temporarily. If we had been told that we had to take it down, we would have taken it down.
Because we could do it.
But it could come down in a couple of hours in that. So I understand what you read, and there was contention between the attorneys on that as to whether or not it was a religious liberties issue and things like that. But that's how it went. And Kelly, you can comment on that if you want to. You were at the meeting.
Yep, thank you. I would like to comment only because I have a very different recollection of the events that occurred at that meeting than you do. We were very specific and clear and engaged our consultants as well as counsel to make sure that they were aware that any religious type of land use or place of worship to be established on the property would have to go through an approval process. There was kind of an off-the-cuff comment made at the meeting because they had made arrangements for the bishop to come to the property, that if if they showed up one day and did a ribbon cutting and had kind of something very portable and temporary that came in with them and left with them that day, that there wasn't really anything in the ordinance that would address kind of a one-time special event that left no trace on the property. What ended up happening, of course, was construction of the mural wall structure, along with Stations of the Cross, benches, signage. So in our view, it's exactly what we told them needed to get approval, and they went ahead anyway and built it.
I'm sorry, that was not our understanding. And yeah, I'm sorry.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
I have one more, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
The warranty deed, there's a provision in your warranty deed and that states that the grantee shall develop the land consistent with its Casa USA vision to replicate Sant Pio's model of healthcare delivery in the US. And if they fail to do so within 5 years, the grantee will have at their discretion to either transfer the property back or sell it. What specifically is that quote unquote model of healthcare delivery vision? Is there an outline that says exactly what that is?
No, it was intentionally generally written to make sure that if the diocese donated to this to us, that we would use it in a purpose that supported what our vision was. And the overall vision is the development of the healthcare program in the model and the charism of Padre Pio. Part of that is the prayer foundation, and this is consistent, and I will assure you that the bishop is very happy with the way that the direction that it's going, and it is consistent with that and supports the whole overall vision of the Casa USA and the Catholic Healthcare International.
So if this were to be approved as it sits, would that comply with what that Casa vision is?
I'm not sure I understand specifically what this would be approved. What do you mean by that?
If what you're submitting this evening would be approved for the chapel, right?
Yes.
If that were approved, would that comply with the provision that's in here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The prayer foundation of the overall vision. Yes, absolutely.
Because it's a little confusing as it states in here of the model of healthcare delivery.
Right. If there's any question in your mind, I'm sure that the bishop and the legal counsel for the diocese would be happy to write a letter that says that this does fulfill that requirement.
That was my only other question. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none. I would look for a motion regarding the recommendation of the special use application. Jim, I think you're trying to make a motion and you're on mute. It's nice to have a mute for you, Jim, but we need you to talk on this one. Thanks, Jim.
Take a
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to recommend to the Township Board special land use permit for a church and accessories to that church at 3280 Chilson Road, subject to the following. The general operations schedule, which will be attached to the special land use permit, will be revised to indicate that masses held before 9 o'clock, in the case of masses held before 9 a.m. in the morning, the bell will not be used, rather than should not be used. Further, the petitioner will adhere to all township ordinances not accepted with this motion, with this use. This recommendation to the township board is made because the planning commission finds that it is compatible with the master plan as a special use within this zoning ordinance. It will not the planning commission believes it will not adversely impact the natural features and agricultural uses in the surrounding area, and in fact will preserve them. In addition, the planning commission finds that it will not require public utilities from the township, such as sewer and water and school usage, nor will it burden police and fire services. That's my motion.
Jim, with regard to the bell, do we want to add anything as a to our ordinance with regard to decibels and the range?
The ordinance accepts bells and chimes from the sound ordinance.
Okay. All right. And the extra parking space at 39 that we were talking about before, do we have to include that in this?
I'm sorry, ask that again, please.
There's 39 parking spots. It's just a formality.
Well, wouldn't that
Brian,
in the site plan?
okay, we'll put it in the site plan.
Yes.
Related to parking though, I wonder if the commission might consider something in the special land use permit related to just a statement that the events and the use of the property will not exceed the available parking on site.
I think that's a good add.
Okay, can you pick that up? Say that again, please.
That events and use of the property shall not exceed the parking that is provided.
Okay. Can you pick that up?
I've got that. Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. We have any other discussion? Do we want to do a roll call, Kelly, or do we want to?
You need a second?
Yes, I'm sorry, Jeff, we need a second.
I'll second.
Jeff seconds it. All right. We'll do a roll call.
A roll call would be easier for me. Yes, please.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to just make this one. Okay. Jim.
Yes.
Lennis.
Should you unmute?
You're on mute.
I oppose.
Eric.
No.
Jill.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Mary Ann.
Oppose.
And Chris is a yes. The motion carries 4 yeses to 3 nos. I need a motion for regarding the recommendation for the environmental impact assessment.
Mr. Chairman, I will recommend approval of the environmental impact assessment dated, forgot the date here, just a minute.
2/16/21.
2/16/21, subject to the following. The operations plan presented this evening by the petitioner will be attached to and part of the environmental impact assessment. Further, the documents regarding the future plans presented this evening will become attached to and part of the environmental impact assessment. That's my motion.
Any discussion? Can I have a second?
Second, Jeff.
Eric, roll call.
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Nay.
Jim,
Yes.
Glynis,
Nay. Opposed?
and Chris is a yes. Motion carries 5-2. Now I will look for a motion regarding the recommendation of the site plan dated 2/16/21.
Before we do that, can Kelly hold up the building, so the building samples? Generally earth tone colors.
Dimensional shingle. Where does the limestone fit in? Is that a big portion of the exterior of the facility of the church? I haven't seen plans on that.
What was your question, Mr. Chair?
Kelly, do we have the schematic that shows us where that brick and the limestone will be used in the construction?
I don't know if the architect, is Mary Swanson still on with us?
So this is limestone,
That's what I thought. Okay.
brick.
It's primarily limestone.
So
There's
the
brick in the
face
way.
of the center of the front is the limestone.
Okay. All right, thank you. Ryan, does that meet our masonry requirements and everything that we would be from an ordinance standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chair. It's entire, I mean, it's all limestone and brick.
Okay, that's what I was hoping for. All right, thank you. All right. I'm still looking for a motion.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I will recommend approval of the site plan for a church in related amenities at 3280 Chilson Road. Site plan dated February 16th, 2021. This recommendation for approval by the township board, subject to the following. The building materials reviewed this evening are acceptable and will become property of the township. The planning commission recommends approval of 39 parking spaces in 2 bumper blocks. The site plan should be revised prior to submission to the township board to identify where additional parking would be planned at a future date. The planting as displayed in the site plan is accepted as shown, given that existing plants are placed a total ordinance or total plantings above the ordinance. A green belts will not be required. The requirements of the township engineer in his letter of March 2nd and the Brighton Area Fire Authority in their letter of February 18th will be complied with. Moreover, the requirements of the township or the county road commission will be met as spelled out in their letter of January 22nd, 2021. That's my motion.
Discussion?
Go ahead, Jeff.
My question is, we talked about the 39th parking space, but in the special use application, we talked about only as many folks there as the parking allowed. So do we have to talk about overflow parking?
Well, I think the overflow parking I was speaking to was the point that Jill raised about identifying where we would build additional parking. Was that not your point, Joe?
She's trying to find that mute button.
I couldn't get it. Yeah, my point was, there was a concern that there was so much parking on Chilson Road during events that if we found it to be a problem, I wanted to know that they could accommodate additional parking to handle their needs at the site. Not something to be built now, but if the township sometime determined that they needed it, that they would be able to.
I find that
We could eliminate that at this point because we did reference limiting the use of the site to the amount of parking. So
Okay, you can
either.
Okay, you can scratch that.
Are we still okay with 39?
Well, it's one above. That's why I made the motion because.
Okay. All right. I'm cool with 39.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, I'm looking for a second.
I'll second, Jill.
Jill. All right. All those in favor, Jill,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Opposed.
Jim,
Yes.
Glennis,
Opposed.
Eric,
Yes.
and Chris is a yes. Motion carries. Congratulations, Scott and crew. We will be sending this forward to the Board of Trustees.
Well, we appreciate your time.
For those-
tonight. Sorry, we appreciate your time tonight and last month as well. And we look forward to continued conversation with the township on moving this forward. So thank you for your time.
Thank you all
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you, Scott. All right. Next up is administrative business. Anybody got some administrative business?
I have a question, if I could, sir.
Sure, go right ahead, Glennis. Or who is it? Is it
It's
Glennis?
Patty.
Patty.
It's Patty.
I can't see it, Patty. I'm sorry.
I know I got no picture tonight. Commissioner Rouch, am I correct in that you voted yes for the environmental impact statement and no for the other two items? Oh, no, yes for the, so
I voted
I show that
no
you-
for the special use application. I could not personally reconcile section 19.03.01 and 19.03.02.
okay, so you voted no and then
I
yes
felt-
and
but
yes.
I was fine with the environmental impact assessment and site.
Okay.
So I voted yes.
Thank
on
you so much. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any staff report from Kelly?
Just to let the commission know that the next meeting is April 12th. The Prophet Elijah Retreat Center is anticipating resubmitting and being back on your agenda for that meeting. And then I also am proposing to put some ordinance amendments before you as they relate to Article 11, which is kind of our general provisions and definitions as well. The only other comment I wanted to make is that most of you hopefully have gotten an email that we are hoping to have a joint meeting on Monday, April 26th. That is kind of a kickoff for the master plan update that was kicked off this time last year, but due to COVID and the restrictions that related to public engagement in this environment, we've kind of pushed that off, and we're going to start again and hope to have that joint meeting and then be able to have some public workshops and invite some people to communicate and get involved in that process.
All right. Any other member discussion? All right. Then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Don't we have to do
Excuse
it?
me, sir, you
Approval.
forgot the minutes.
Yes.
That's not on my
Mary
table.
Ann is missing her moment.
Chris, I think I used that same guide last month and we.
I blame Kelly.
You
She's
can blame me.
misleading me.
So
My
Patty, is
apologies.
it helpful for you just to go to the first page of the minutes? The first page is fine. Second page, second paragraph, where it says, also the comments from the community, I think should be community members, that they are planning to build a hospital on the property in the future are not correct.
Okay.
The rest of that page is fine. Page number 3, third from the last paragraph down, second sentence where it says, any future additions or changes to the site should say may require a traffic study. And then the next paragraph, it should say, the petitioner is not proposing to put curbing in the parking lots. And that, pardon? You good still?
I'm good. Yes, I didn't say
All right.
anything. Thanks.
Then the page 4, the last one, second paragraph, it says, he would like to see how the cistern tank is going to be maintained. We should need to define who he is.
Okay.
and everything else was fine. Motion to approve the minutes with those changes.
We have a second. Second for Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes. Now can we have a movement or a move for adjournment?
So moved.
Second by Eric.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Tough night, long night. I think we handled
Nice
it.
working, nice working for minimum wage.
Good night,
No, great
everyone.
job, everybody. That was a tough one.